January 27th, 2026 at 6:36 p.m. Thank you folks online for bearing with us as we start a few minutes late, as those of us coming in on the roads were navigating the streets and coming in and settling in. This is a meeting of the Ordinance Committee. Per order of the chair, that is myself, Meg McGrath-Smith, and to my right in chambers and our vice chair of Ordinance, we have Councillor Linda Vacan, and also in chambers we have joined us Councillor Michael Sullivan and our treasurer, Rory Casey, online. We have a number of folks. Thank you for joining us. We have committee members Ann Talhammer and Mimi Panich and Israel Rivera. And we also have councillors Divine, Anderson Burgos, and Tessa Murphy-Marboletti. We also have a number of city personnel here. Of course, I named our treasurer. We also have Kelly Curran, who is our HR director. We have Mike Bissonette, our solicitor, Sharon Bittner, who is our current auditor. And we also have TJ Plant, who has been a consultant hired by the city in order to support us with reconciliation and through our financial policies revision through this process. We've also been joined by the mayor on Zoom. So thank you all for joining us today. I entertain a motion for us to take up the first item.
I'll make the motion.
Oh, hold on. I need to find the document for Zoom. My apologies. All right, a motion to take a roll call vote that for the purposes of this meeting that would be applicable to all motions to remove an item from the table, place items on the table, package items, or suspend the rules unless there is an objection. Do I have a second?
Second.
Members of the committee, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, with my mic on.
Thank you. Any opposed? Okay, hearing none, the motion passes, which allows us to move forward into a hybrid setting here because we have members of the committee on Zoom. All right, so I entertain a motion to take up item 1.
So I'll make a motion to take up item 1, but I would note I did not see it online before the meeting tonight. I looked for it, I could not see them, so I have not read them.
All right.
So, but I'll make a motion to take them up if others have had the opportunity to read them.
I'm also happy to table, and we can take it up as an item in the next meeting, too.
Sure.
Okay. Well, let's just leave it on the table then.
Okay.
Madam Chair?
Yes. Is that Councillor Devine I see?
Yes, before, I don't want you to table it without me just making one small correction.
Yes, please.
Discussion where it says Councillor Devine stated that she was informed of the situation at 17 Mountain View Drive. It should be 170.
Should be what?
170.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. I entertain a motion to take up item 2.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. This is item 2. McGrath-Smith ordered that an ordinance be drafted regulating the number of cars that can be parked on a residential property. And we have the language in front of us. We have the original, and then we also have what is amended. And what we're being asked to do here is to consider amending Ordinance 86-134B by adding the following after front yard in the first sentence: side yard or rear yard. Solicitor Bissonette, would you mind just giving us a brief overview of the impact of adding that to this ordinance change? What would change as a result of that? And why is this the language that has been suggested by the law department?
Sure. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
The genesis of this, as noted by Councillor Devine, is a situation at 170 Mountain View where there are significant numbers of motor vehicles, all of which are registered, as I understand it, and located all across the exterior portions, the outside portions of that property. So the discussion was, how can we make this all-encompassing so that we can prevent some of these larger yards in Holyoke from looking like there's a outdoor concert parking going on So this is one way that, in working with the law department, that we've been able to come up with some ways of addressing this. So this would be the first, obviously want to continue to enforce, but we have to make sure the ordinance is all on square with what it is we want to enforce. It's not right now, so we need this added language. Happy to take any questions, though.
Yes, thank you. And Solicitor Bissonnette, just as a quick follow-up before I move to other members of the committee, I believe we had also talked about whether enforcement had to be built into this, or if it existed elsewhere in ordinance. Because I do see that under B, it says the penalty for a violation of this section shall be a fine of not less than $25 and not more than $300 to be issued by the city police department. And one of the questions when we talked about enforcement of this ordinance was whether it had to be clearer whether that was each day, whether that was per vehicle, whether that was in totality, just making that clear, because otherwise I could see it potentially being enforced in different ways, and I want to make sure that we're being clear in how we would want it to be enforced.
My thought on that was that in this situation, fines are usually assessed per violation, per day. So in this instance, it would be each vehicle every single day would be in violation of the ordinance. And that's how we differentiate between residentials and used car lots, for example. So that would be an amendment that could be made tonight to this, and we could subject it to a redraft. If you want to put that language in tonight, certainly doable.
How do you interpret what the language currently says in terms of enforcement? Do you think that current language stands per violation per day, or do you think we would need to revise it in order to accomplish that?
I'm always in favor of more clarity, but I will say that courts have interpreted it to be every day.
Okay.
Every violation is a singular instance, and it happens every single 24-hour period. Sort of like if you stay in the same no parking zone, you'll wind up like I did when I was an intern in Washington, D.C., and come back and find 10 tickets on your car.
Thank you.
Same premise.
All right, and I see Councilor Devine, your hand, and then Councilor Israel Rivera.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm just wondering if you might, the committee might consider changing it from registered/unregistered cars, adding the unregistered cars to that ordinance.
Okay.
That's all.
Sure, I'm just writing that note down in my notes.
Oh, okay.
Just looking in the ordinance itself, would this be at the beginning of the second line? Or currently it says vehicles found in violation of the provisions of this section. So your suggestion is to amend it to add registered/unregistered before vehicles in the second line?
I don't have the language in front of me.
Okay.
But if it says registered vehicles, I think we should put registered/unregistered vehicles.
Thank you. Councilor Rivera?
So just for clarification, so I'm just trying to figure out like the approach we're taking here, because I'm with writing new policy, right? Because that's what seems like we're doing, or we're amending policy. But if they're already in violation of policy, I think the issue doesn't lie with creating or amending policy, but enforcement is where the issue lies. So it doesn't matter what policy we create or design to try to get someone to do what we would like them to do, or to follow the policy, right? But I think the issue lies with enforcement. So if we can get someone now to kind of follow up and have them follow through on the enforcement piece, we wouldn't necessarily need to create policy. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. Does that make sense or no?
Yes. So I guess, and I would love to have the city solicitor, respond. My understanding is that we have on the books, a clear understanding of unregistered cars, because unregistered cars, if you have a number of them, then effectively what you're running is an unlicensed junkyard. Is what the city would then effectively say, and then they would be able to use our ordinances in order to enforce, hey, you're operating without a license, in order to be able to push for folks to either get a license or remove the cars. But in this case, what we've kind of run into is a gap in our ordinances where they're registered, and we have an ordinance that says you're not allowed to, park on the front part of your yard. And we don't have anything in our ordinances that says you can't park in your side yard or your backyard with all of these registered cars. So it is a question, I think, and I think it's the wider question for us to consider is, do we feel that we should be preventing folks from parking registered or unregistered cars in their side and backyards? Understanding that this would come forward through neighbors effectively saying, I have a concern about my neighbor's yard.
That's what I'm saying. Are we saying one individual car, or are we saying a bunch of cars? Because if we're saying one individual car, that's different than saying someone that's having a bunch of cars in their side yard or even in their backyard.
So our zoning ordinances say that you are only allowed to park in your driveway, and that you're not allowed to park in the frontaged, like landscaped section of your front yard. This takes it out of the zoning ordinances and puts it where our other parking ordinances are. Less for like new building construction or permitting, but more for existing properties, and says you shouldn't have registered, non-registered cars parked other than in your driveway. You shouldn't have them. It already says your front yard. This is expanding it to it shouldn't be in your side yard or your backyard. And I do think it's a wider question of if we do want to, to proceed in terms of doing that, because I will say right now, the majority of the cars of this property are in the side and backyard. They're not in the front yard.
No, I with this particular individual situation, I get everything wholeheartedly what we're doing, but this is part of what I was bringing up with regards to policy and enforcement. I believe the guy could be, this particular situation could be violating zoning laws too as well, not just particular ordinances that are set forth. And if that's the case, then I think, again, we go back to enforcement and figuring out how we can do better at enforcing and making sure that we're following up and that we can do the best that we can, that we make sure that people follow the ordinance that have already set forth around zoning or whatever it is. But if we're creating a whole new law that's gonna kind of, there are people that don't have driveways. I don't have a driveway. There are people that don't have a backyard or a side yard. And that's the only space they have to store a car because they can't afford to pay for storage somewhere else. So now it changes from a whole person that could have a lot at their house because they have a lot of property to taking away from the smaller individual that doesn't have as much property. I think that's where, for me, it's becoming a problem.
I agree. Yeah, I do think that it's messy, and we do have to consider we're not creating an ordinance that is for one problem or one property. It's an ordinance that could then be applied to any property. And so I do think that it's important for us to talk about its wider implications for sure, even as we're trying to make sure we're crafting something that does allow us to respond when we need to. And I think we do have a problem in front of us that we're sort of, surprised that when we look at our current ordinances, it's actually really tricky to respond. But I see Councillor Thalheimer and I see Councillor Bacon.
Excellent, thank you. I would offer the question of including a time limit or a time frame. For example, there are a number of folks in various neighborhoods who in an effort to get out of the snow, may have parked on their property, driveway, back driveway. Sometimes driveways go around and back and behind the home, behind the property. So I think we have to make room for things like that in special circumstances, because for the better good, these folks are off the street, which is kind of the main priority right now, but would technically be in violation of this ordinance, even though, again, they're doing this for the greater good. So I would like to throw that into the mix, maybe a time duration, special circumstances, other provisions for cases such as this. Thank you.
Thank you. Counselor Bacon?
Thank you. So my concern with this is that I think it is too broad and too restrictive. Because the way I'm understanding it, say there was a house, 2 adults, 3 kids, the kids get their license, and now there's 5 cars. You can't park 5 cars in a driveway. And so they would, by virtue of having so many people with cars that are legal, they would be made lawbreakers. And to me, if you have your private property, you should be able to use it. I understand the neighborhood and quality of life rationale around not parking in the front yard. But for people to be restricted of the use of their own private property by a local ordinance, I think is overreaching. And I don't think the intention of it is to cause that, but nonetheless, it would put people, as in that example, in that situation. So I think I mentioned this at the last city council meeting. I think there are other ways that we can address the current situation that is unique and I think a one-time kind of thing, other than businesses operating in residential, which is a different kind of problem, but that's already against the ordinances. I just think that we'd be better off trying to find a different path if the ones that we have will not work to deal with this particular situation. You know, it's just, it's a fine line between property rights and government, community, quality of life interest. And I just am fascinated that we've never heard anything from this owner at this point, but I find it troubling to create an ordinance about a person we haven't even heard from on the matter. So I just think we could come up maybe with a better idea.
Thank you. I see Counselor Devine's hand up.
Yep, thank you. I just wanted to mention that the Mountain View Drive situation, there, I believe there are at minimum 4, possibly 5 cars on the front lawn. And Councilor McGrath Smith and I have been working with the Law Department, the Board of Health, the zoning, lots of things about this particular property. He has been notified, but I just think that we need to, the front yard is a problem. I'm only talking about this particular space. There is 4 or 5. There's probably on the side yard where the backyard is, there's also greens on the side of that have at least 6 cars on the lawn. So that's all, thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I do think that it might make sense at this point. I think we've named a number of the, we want this ordinance to do, but also the worries of kind of other implications of what this could trigger. I have the same concerns as Councilor Bacon around just wanting to respect the right of private property. In general, we don't legislate what people do in their backyards if it's not a health issue. We tend to put that on the neighbors around them. If you don't like what's in your neighbor's yard, you put up a fence, right? You put up bushes. That's their backyard. But I also think there is a there's a tension there between wanting to respect people's private property rights and also knowing that people buy property with the, I think, reasonable expectation that there will be a sort of social contract around how people's, spaces and, stuff that's visibly seen by the road or by their neighbors is treated. And so I do think that it's a messy situation. I think what I'd like to do at this point is to table as it is and see if our law department can look at it and see if there's any other modifications they would like, to see if there's a way to modify this ordinance in a way that works. I'm not sure that we can, but I think that maybe we give them another opportunity to see if we can bring another option that might work better to the committee.
If I may.
Yes, Councilor Bacon?
I'll be happy to offer a motion to table, but based on the rules that we set up for our committee, it's up to us to give the law department some language to work with, rather than to ask them to create it, just as a point of information.
Sure. So the things that I've heard, and I'm happy to say them again as chair, I've heard that we want to make sure that it's very clear if we're talking about many cars or a few, and if we want to handle registered or unregistered, and make clear what we're talking about. And I also heard that we want to put in some sort of time frame or, sort of reasonable expectation of, there are situations where, for example, for snow, you might need to, move cars temporarily onto your lot for a certain amount of time.
And also to understand the private property rights.
Yep.
So that we're not bumping into other laws.
Yeah.
So,
Oh,
I'll
I'm
make
sorry.
a-
I see Councilor Panish.
Yeah, just if we are listing considerations now, as
Yep.
opposed to we're coming back and rediscussing with an open approach. One thing that I think we're not talking about here is at some point, and I don't know what the threshold is, we probably want to talk to the Board of Health or to professionals who deal with motor vehicles, because one of the issues with parking on grass is that there is nothing between the groundwater, as it were, and anything that might be leaching from those vehicles. And this obviously isn't much of a problem if you've got a driveway, if you've got a garage, if you've got something between the vehicles that you're storing or parking and the groundwater. But I think, maybe the consideration doesn't come up with one or two vehicles, but it comes up with 10. And maybe this is completely frivolous, but I would like to hear from experts before we conclude that it's completely frivolous. And just the other thing for the record is that I do want to, even though it is accounted for in the draft in front of us, draw everybody's attention to the fact that we already do have a special permit for a driveway in the front yard. It is currently a special permit awarded by the City Council, but as I read it, it gives the council considerable flexibility. And if we want to go down that route for people who need to store many vehicles in back or side yards and we're worried about it, one place we might look is whether we need to expand that. It is in the zoning ordinance, which would make this more cumbersome. But, I feel like we should be aware of it. And that's all I've got.
Thank you, Councilor Panish. Very helpful.
So I will make a motion that we send this over to legal to see if they can address the listed questions that you read, and that we also reach out to the Board of Health for any feedback that they might offer the next time that we take this up. So the motion is to refer back to those bodies for their feedback, and then the motion is to table.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Motion to take up item 3.
So moved. Second, sorry.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Item 3, McGrath-Smith ordered that the necessary changes in ordinances be made in order to establish a finance department and the roles and responsibilities of its members. We took this up last week and were able to hear from our treasurer and mayor auditor, and we're able to look at the organizational chart and the job descriptions. And I feel like we had a really good and productive conversation. As of Friday, the draft ordinance package was sent so that we could redline it and then go through and discuss if this is the ordinance language that we feel comfortable with, or if we wanted to make changes to it. I want to invite in our treasurer, and I want to name that we have a number of folks on Zoom who very well may want to present information on this, what we have in front of us. I want to name that because this is new language for us, there is some of us are familiar with the earliest version of the Modernization Act. There are some parts of this that are the same and some that are very different. And I'm sure that folks will have questions, and we're going to have to discuss today, I think, conceptually, and also even to the line of sort of Scrivener's errors. So it will be a conversation that I think, will operate on several levels. I want to name, there are two main conversations that I see in here that I definitely want us to have before we get into that sort of Scrivener level conversation. There are two things that are very different in this draft than the ordinance package that we looked at under the last council. The first is that it substantially changes the appointing powers of the financial team. And I think we have to discuss that in depth and the pros and cons of those choices, and discuss if that's something we're comfortable with or not. The other thing is the residency requirements. There's new language around a waiver process that would be standardized across all department heads. I think that's new, and we have to talk about that at the most basic of levels, conceptually, as well as is this the right language? So I just want to name those two things, and then I'll open it up to committee members, and then we can call on different city members as needed. Councillor Bacon?
Thank you. I have a point of order relative to this new legal language. So we had our first meeting of the term 2 weeks ago, and this language was presented. The committee has never asked for changes in appointing authority or changes in residency. The only thing before the committee was your new order. So how did we get these significant changes in this language in full legal form in front of us? Because the committee did not request it.
So from my perspective, at the end of the last meeting, it was conceptually discussed that we were going to start with the organizational chart and the job descriptions, and that we were then asking for the ordinance language for us to look at this meeting. And then the treasurer and the HR director worked with other members of the law department in order to craft this draft for us to look at so that we could redline it and decide, is this going in the right direction or is it not?
I hear what you're saying, but I still renew my point of order because these were not changes requested by any city councilor. These are all staff-driven changes that have now come to us in full legal form, which is what I objected to in charter and rules in the last term. And we're doing the same process again. And we're supposed to be debating and discussing the changes before they're sent over to legal for legal form. We just rewrote that rule in the last term, right? So I just have to really ask, why do we keep writing rules and making rules and revising them, and then we ignore them? Because to me, it is very important to the process that we talk about what the current structure is. We have 2 new members on our committee that have not been part of any of the historic debate. I don't believe they even know what the current structure is. And we're talking about changing it fundamentally. So at the very least, I request that we have a side-by-side for what the current structure is, because we don't have that sitting beside what the proposed new structure is. And 2 out of our 5 members are new. And so I think it's really important that we follow our rules and do a good process. Thank you.
Thank you. Counselor Rivera, do I see your hand up?
Yes, Madam Chair, if I may, and I know we've already started on this particular item, but I want to ask that we suspend the rules and move on to take this item last and take all the other ones before. There's a bunch of handicap placard ones, and then there's one around the handicap removal. There are various ones that are quick that we can actually just do, so that we can get progress going, and then we can come back to this one. Because I feel like this one, there's gonna be a little bit of circle talking and grandstanding. For the moment, so we can get some work done, I would like to entertain a motion to take up, I think, items 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and 13 as a package, just to get those out of the way, and then we can get back to this one.
Please leave 13 out. It's a removal rather than a,
It's actually not. Counselor Anderson Burgos wants it addressed.
Yes.
I'm just asking for it to be left out of the package.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you meant like, you want it to be leave to withdraw. My bad. I
No.
thought you said, yeah, my bad. So we'll leave 13 out of the 12.
Counselor Rivera, I'll defer. If you feel like you're worried that we're not going to get to these, I'm not worried. I was more than happy to make sure that we got to them. But if you want to take them first quickly, I'm more than happy to. It doesn't matter because they won't take long. But also, I think if we're going to take up those items, then we need to take items 7 through 12.
Yeah, that works. That's what I meant.
Okay. So the motion is to take up items 7 through 12 as a package. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, hearing none. Item 7 is Jay Rivera ordered that the DPW install a handicap sign at 182 Lyman Street for Ricardo Oquendo. Item 8, Jay Rivera ordered that DPW install handicap parking sign for Oscar Rios of 12 Grover Street. Item 9, Purcell order requests that a handicap parking space be designated at 5 Clinton Ave for Andreas Martinez. Item 10, Jay Rivera ordered that the DPW install a handicap sign at 330 Maple Street, apartment 19 for Jose A. Reyes. Item 11, Bartley, the DPW install a handicap parking sign for Annie Portes of 18 Clark Street. And item 12, Jay Rivera ordered that a handicap sign be placed outside of 167 Elm Street for Zoila Diaz. If folks in the committee were able to look through their packets, you'll see that we have these documents here for us. Jeffrey, do we have everything that we need from the Disability Commission in order to move on these orders?
Yeah, so the Disabilities Commission sent me a report on all of these last week. They approved 7 through 10, but they denied 11 and 12 on the grounds that the need was not documented, that they were being requested out of convenience rather than need.
Okay, so will you repeat those numbers to us again?
7 through 10 were approved, 11 and 12 were denied.
And is it their recommendation that we give them leave to withdraw item 11 or 12 or table in order to give them ability to provide additional information as to prove their need?
I think they were leaving that up to the committee.
Okay. Well, I will say as a new chair to ordinance, I would love an understanding on what has normally been done as a preference from the Disabilities Commission.
It's,
Councillor
If you may.
Bacon? Yes.
it's very rare for the commission to deny.
Yeah, I don't
So-
think I've seen a denial yet, so I was actually surprised to see 2 come forward.
Right. But if they did, and they've given us explanation, I would tend not to argue against them, but on the other hand, I would perhaps offer to table in case the filing counselor or the current counselor, as the case may be, had more information to add, or new information, because it's the new term.
Yeah.
So That's my feedback there.
Kelly Curran, do I see your hand up pertaining to this order?
Yeah, I didn't expect to speak about it, but I can look into why those were rejected. But if they're the ones I think they are, it's because we sometimes have to follow up for more information, and I don't think those two provided additional information, and therefore they were denied.
Okay, well, I think that I'm tempted then for us to keep them tabled and just, pursue more communication, Jeffrey, to the Disabilities Commission and find out if they want us to see if there's more information these two applicants can provide, or if in fact we should give them leave to withdraw.
And to the counselors.
Yes, and also to communicate to those counselors too, so they know.
So I'll make a motion that we approve items 7, 8, 9, and 10 as recommended by the Disabilities Commission.
I will second that motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, hearing
And I
none.
will make a motion that we leave item 11 and item 12 on the table to see if either the counselors in the wards have more feedback or information, and if the Disabilities Commission receives any further information.
Do I have a second?
There's a second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay,
And- So continuing on this theme, if Councilor Rivera's request wasn't enough to do it, I would move that we suspend the rules and move on to item number 13, which Councilor Anderson Burgos has requested that we take up as quickly as possible.
do I have a second? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Anderson Burgos ordered that the 2 handicap parking spots on the west side of Ivy Ave be removed. The residents where they are located have stated nobody in their building uses them, and the spots limit on-street parking. There's also no record of a resident with a handicap placard applying for them. Jeffrey, would you mind speaking to this one? Because I know that we had heard there were 3 placards on the street, but only 1 was accounted for in terms of an active placard.
That was the research that was done. My understanding is Councilor Anderson Burgos spoke with the city clerk looking for that record.
Councilor Anderson Burgos, I do see you with us. Do you want to speak to this order? Okay, hearing none, and of course you can. Oh, there you are. There you are. It's all right.
So, just for the record, as some of you may or may not know, I had 4 injections done,
Yes.
inserted into my back. So I'm on medication. So I'm like, where's the unmute button? Anyways, enough of that. So, luckily, dear members of the committee, please, at your leisure, take out your pens because this is extensive work that I did way back. And I have the notes. Luckily, I found these notes, just going right towards the end of the year, December, I found them. I'm like, oh, and that's what made me, prompted me to file the order again. And I'm glad I did because we're in a time right now where the city is fighting for parking spaces, and this is ideal to be taken up tonight so that we can discuss, because it has been years and years and years of chaos for the poor people that live at 9 Ivy. So here is what I have. I said the order was to take, so step 1, I filed the order in September 2018 because residents at 9 Ivy at the time, neither of them needed any handicap spaces at all. None of them needed it. And to be quite frank, it was chaos getting parking even when it wasn't snowing. 2, even though I filed it in 2018, it took long before it was taken out of the ordinance jacket. Not going to go into the details of who was the ordinance chair at that time, but it was taken out during the pandemic. And the reason why I remember this is because I was on Zoom when I was discussing this in detail and going over all of the work I had done, my due diligence as a counselor to my constituents, all the work that I'd done. So it says here, so it kept getting tabled due to not needing more information, and that's information that I had already provided. 4, over the years, I continued visiting and spoke to all the residents in the building and throughout the street. They all agreed these parking spaces, these handicapped parking spaces in front of 9 Ivy is chaos. It does not make sense. No one asked for them. They just came about. 5, spoke to the owner of the building who said only one resident who recently moved out used to use it, and this is back then, does not use it. And as a matter of fact, I went back, checked, that guy was gone. He drove a red pickup truck. He is no longer living there. 6, spoke to the Disability Commission who said they're looking at the application and the materials that came with it. They also do not get involved with removal of handicap parking spaces. That responsibility falls on the city ordinance and committee of the, on the ordinance committee of the city council. And they also had no records of any placards being used as, because back then you had to have a placard to have one installed. There was no such application ever coming from disabilities. Then I called the city clerk's office. That's also under the guidance of the Disability Commission. I called the city clerk's office to find out how many handicap applicants request for handicap parking spaces on Ivy Ave. And the response was only 1. None of them were on the side of 9 Ivy. They were literally across the street. And then I said, I'm simply asking for us to do what's right for the constituents of 9 Ivy. They have been dealing with this chaos for years, and it is not fair that only one constituent on that street is the one that has been pushing for these handicap places, placards, or handicap, handicap plates, or not plates, bear with me, signs, the handicap parking signs to be removed. It's caused chaos. And here was this was the 9th. I mentioned when a counselor spends time doing their research and works harder than they should have, doing the best he could for their ward, I don't disregard his or her work. In other words, if one of my fellow colleagues, any one of you, have ever came across this issue, I would not question your work ethics and the steps you took like I did. I would not question it without a doubt. I trust that you did the right thing for all of the constituents in that area. Yet, back in I'm not sure if it was 2020 or 2021, it was shot down. And I did some more research. I'm not going to go into that, but if I have to, I will. And I will disclose a lot of information that's going to create some chaos. And I'm pretty sure the taxpayers of the city are going to be fed up with what I have to share with them. This is horrible and it needs to stop. And those poor constituents of 9 Ivy Street, 9 Ivy Ave have had enough. I literally got a call from one of them just the other day saying this snowstorm was freaking her out. Anyways, that's all I have. If you got, and I have more information. Oh, by the way, yes, I also checked, and if you want to, go to, I believe it was, give me 1 second, please bear with me, folks. It was the meeting, the ordinance meeting on October 10th, 2017, where the chair and a former at-large counselor that is no longer with the city council walked in without having any evidence that anyone applied for those handicap. So if you go to that meeting that's recorded on October 10th, 2017, and you go up to about the 20-minute line, you will see how that played out. It was done incorrectly from the beginning, and yet I was cast aside like I was the one that was wrong and that I was committing elderly abuse, which is not within my nature to ever do such a thing. So please take everything I have just shared with you under consideration, because I would never steer this committee or the chamber wrong. I don't do
Thank
that,
you.
never have. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor.
Absolutely.
Counselor Devine, do we have your hand up on this order?
Yes,
Counselor Devine?
yes. Can you hear me?
Yes. Yes, we can. But you've since muted yourself. You might need to unmute so that we can hear you now.
Okay, there we go. How's that?
Perfect.
It's funny that you're talking about this because I actually got a call tonight from somebody on Ivy Avenue. And the gist of the call was, why were they taking away her handicap spot? And I tried to explain that, you know, we no longer do it by the placard number. It's anybody could go and park in that spot as long as they have a handicap placard. And this person also has a driveway. And that to me is a big deal if you have a driveway. And again, I'm not sure what happened way back in 2017, but I can imagine. And so I told this woman, you're gonna have to wait it out because one, it's not your parking spot, and two, you do have a driveway. And her response was, well, my car won't fit in my driveway. And I said, well, God, what kind of car do you have? Thinking she had a big truck. She doesn't, she has like a RAV4 or something like that. But again, that sign doesn't belong to one person. It belongs to everybody that should have a handicap placard. So I just wanted to add that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I did speak with the clerk, and she did confirm that there's only one placard that should remain on the street. And this order asks us to remove the 2 handicap parking spots on the west side of Ivy Ave. So, yes, Councilor Bacon.
Thank you. So the 3 handicap parking spaces are in ordinance. They are part of our local law. However, they were approved in the distant past, which apparently none of us know. And I received a call from the resident on Ivy also. She stipulates that there is a regular user of one of the handicap spaces that is on the list to be removed, along with her being the regular user of the one on the other side of the street. And it's my understanding that while that apartment building was not filled in the past all the time, there's now business on the first floor, there's parking in the back. We've had this before us at least twice in the past. And in the history of removing handicap parking spaces, we have never done it when a resident is objecting and stipulating that what is there is being used. Now, I'm hearing otherwise, and I'm not going to argue with the perceptions of the people putting it forth, but I would say if we are to eliminate those in the face of an objection, it would be the first time we've done that. And to me, it looks like, if anything, the needs probably increase there. And there is off-street parking behind that building. And I only know this because it's come up a couple times. Otherwise, I wouldn't even know that. But I would encourage us not to remove both of these spaces because I think it's going to put conflict in the neighborhood, and it's going to cause conflict on the use of only one remaining space, and I don't think that's what we want to be about.
Thank you. Councilor Rivera?
I think the only point for me is if there's a space, the space should be assigned to someone. If it's assigned to someone, then that they applied, they went through due process to get the space, and they can keep the space. But if there's no space assigned to someone, I think it would make sense to remove the signs, and if someone needs it, they can go through the process of applying again and getting it back. I don't think that they're gonna get denied, with regards to that, but at the moment, if there's only one person, attached to it, I don't think that it's fair to the rest of the people on the street to have it up just cause, in a sense, because there's no one that applied for the, I'm kind of perplexed because in my experience, and this is different because 2017 feels like a while ago now, but in my experience on the council, I'm going on 4 years pretty much. It's always been that someone requests one, they apply, and they go through that process, it gets vetted. It might have been different then, but the way it's done now, I think it makes sense, and it helps with us understanding where they are and why they're there too at the same time.
I hear you, Councilor Rivera. I also see Councilor Belletti, who has not yet spoken on this issue.
Madam Chair, I just felt like I wanted to just make a quick comment that this has actually been going on since 2013, at least. That was when I worked in the mayor's office and often received many calls from the constituents who live along that street. It hasn't changed. And I guess, I just want to remind people it hasn't been twice that this has come up. This has come up like many, many, many times over the last however many years, 15 years. I started working in room 1 in 2012, and it was an issue then, and it was brought up in 2013 to the full council. I just think that what Councilor Rivera said, we actually can't do, unfortunately, like we can't assign handicap spots to people. But I do think that this is a very small street. I had one follow-up question. Is this one of the ones that did the Disabilities Commission weigh in on this at all? Do they weigh in on this stuff when we're removing them?
No.
Yes. So
Interesting.
Jeffrey, would you mind fielding that question?
Well, I wasn't there at the time, so I don't know, but the process now is that I refer an application, excuse me, sorry, to the Disabilities Commission. So I can't say if there was an application at that time or not, but they would need an application in order to be able to review and offer an approval. So I guess
Okay.
I did, yeah.
No, that's okay. That was just more of a logistical question for me. So all of that being said, the neighborhood is already, there has been conflict about this in the neighborhood for 15 years. So us making a decision on this now is not going to create conflict. In fact, it might help make things a little bit better for everyone on the street. Thank you.
So hearing everything, I think we've heard from everyone at least once, and I know that we have a stacked agenda tonight. So it seems to me like it makes sense for us to approve the removal of the 2, and then if there is a frequent user, they absolutely can then reach back out to the Disabilities Commission and apply for there to be a handicap space. Without that, it seems like we don't have evidence that there is a second user, and thus we don't have any demonstrated need for those 2 spots. Councilor Murphy-Ramboletti, is your hand still up, or is that you wanted to respond again? Okay, hearing none. Councilor Bacon?
Thank you. So what I would like to do is offer a motion that we remove 1 of the handicap spaces and leave 1, so that to the extent that what has been put forth to me, that there is a regular user of a white truck in the other space, whether that person applied for the handicap space or not, they're not required to apply for it because nobody can own the space. And in this way, hopefully we would not be creating a conflict, but we would also be reducing the handicap spaces by 1/3. So I offer that in the spirit of a win-win.
That's the motion. Is there a second? Okay, hearing none. Councilor Rivera?
I lower my hand now. Don't worry about it. I'm good.
Okay.
I just wanted to clarify real quick. I just wanted to clarify what I said with regards to there is no assigning to a space, but the process is that someone has to apply. We fully know that these are public spaces and that no one owns a space that's public. We are fully aware of that as a council. But the process is that someone has to apply. So if there is no application attached to it, then it's hard for us to be hard pressed to prove that someone needs the space. That's the only thing I just wanted to clarify at that point. And I'm sorry for the background noise.
Thank you. Counselor Devine?
I think Counselor Anderson Burgos was before me, if you want to take him. But quickly, the person that called me today, it's almost funny that she also said to me, well, I don't want both of those taken away, but if you leave one, I'll be able to use that one too. This is kind of what Counselor Bacon just said. So
That's not what I
the
said.
bottom line is the person that called me has a driveway. I tried to explain to her that she does not own the spot. So that's where I'm going at this point. I think Juan knows his ward, and if the two should be removed, then certainly people can apply if they need it. Thank you.
Thank you. Counselor Anderson Burgos?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I am going to reiterate really quickly again, no one has ever applied. And back then, yes, you were supposed to apply. That's how they were placed. But at that time, they were placed with a placard number, which is no longer allowed. So placard numbers are not allowed to be associated with the parking space, but the parking space requires an application to go through the process in order to put one up. That is true. Second, there is no white truck. I have been driving through there. I have not seen anyone park. This is recently. I have not seen anyone park. And again, go on Google and you'll see that at that time when that Google vehicle drove by Ivy, there were no cars parked then. There is no cars. And Councilor Devine, it's correct. Councilor Bacon did say that she would prefer one more, so in case if she needed to use that extra one across the street. This person has a driveway. And I really don't want to take up much more of your time because I'm feeling a little ill, but please, let's do the right thing for the love of God. Thank you. Bye.
Is there another motion on the table?
I will renew my motion to remove one of the spaces, and I will stipulate that it was not asked of me to remove one or two or any other amount, and I really do not like being, what I'm saying, mischaracterized. So please stop doing it. I'm trying to look for a compromise here where the lack of need is acknowledged, and also the fact that there's more people parking there than there had been in the past that might need a handicap space is also addressed, and we can keep, looking at it and see how it is.
Is there a second?
What was
Hearing-
the motion again? My apologies.
The motion was to remove one and keep one. Is there a second? Hearing none, is there another motion on the table that another member of the committee would like to make? I'm hearing a lot of discussion. I'm not hearing anyone saying, here's my motion.
Motion to
Okay.
table.
Sorry, waiting with the motion to remove both spaces.
Second.
Any further discussion? Counselor Bacon?
Yes, I think this is an example of bully politics with no interest in compromise, and I think it's a sad statement of the council. Thank you.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Roll call. You have to do roll call.
Thank you. A roll call vote, Counselor Penich?
Yes.
Counselor Talheimer?
Yes.
Counselor Rivera?
D.
Counselor McGrath-Smith? Yes. Counselor Bacon?
No.
4-1, passes. All right, and with that, you have disposed of that one. All right, we have moved through items 7 through 13. And thank you, Counselor Anderson Burgos. Hope you can rest up. I would like us to return to item 3, please. All right. Returning to 3, which we'd earlier taken off the table. Again, this is order that the necessary changes in ordinance be made in order to establish a finance department and the roles and responsibilities of its members. Before we took that lovely side journey into the handicap placards, we had started this conversation. I want to return us there. I want to invite our treasurer in, and my apologies to the folks who came in and joined us and are here to speak to these the ordinance language in front of us. And I'd like to jump in. There are 2 main conversations that I think we do need to have, which I named earlier. One is around the residency language, and one is around the appointing powers. And I will say that especially the appointing powers is probably the biggest shift, and is different from the conversation that we had 2 weeks ago. So I wanted to create initial space for Rory to speak on that, and then for us to have a conversation around where we stand on that. Mr. Kersey, if you wouldn't mind giving us an overview of the appointing powers in terms of what changes are made in this draft we have in front of us.
Yeah, and apologies for any confusion. What we had discussed at the last meeting and what's in front of you this evening was aligning all of the recommendations of the DLS as part of this. Part of their recommendations were that these positions would be appointed by all of them, including ones that are currently appointed by the mayor without council confirmation. That they would be appointed by the mayor of the CAFO with council confirmation across the board.
Can we be provided with documentation of that recommendation, please?
It's the DLS.
About the appointing authority.
It's in all of their reports that they've.
I've seen their reports about creating the positions, but I did not see the level of detail.
Yeah, that would be appointed.
Appointing.
Certainly.
And we didn't even have that new position that's in here, technical assistance, whatever that is.
They had a chief information officer, so this would be a little bit different. Yeah,
It is
but
different.
but it's the same. But there's a lot of the same kind of goals as it relates to data.
If you say so.
I do.
Councilor Bacon.
I do say so. And if we want to have a conversation about that, we certainly can. But to answer specifically Councilor McGrath Smith's questions, so that's what's in front of the committee this evening, is that the full recommendations of DLS. Now, understanding that since that was sent, some confusion came up. Certainly, however the committee wants to move forward, we certainly can. But that's what's in front of the committee right now, is the, for example, the purchasing director. Right now, it's appointed by the mayor. That's it. This would give the council confirmation on that. It's trying to create a uniform approach to all of these positions, that it's really a partnership between the mayor and the council making these decisions, rather than all of it living in one body, one branch or the other branch. And certainly, anyone else who's been part of these conversations, on the staff side, as was mentioned earlier, Councilor Solicitor Bissonnette, Kelly, the mayor, of course, can certainly jump in. But I think it's really important for us to realize it's not something that we need to get hung up on, right? I think what we're trying to do here is take an approach that's going to get us to the end result, which is a centralized finance department where silos have been removed and there's clear day-to-day supervision, and folks are being held accountable for their actions. If there is a desire to keep certain positions being appointed solely by the council, as long as it's clearly articulated that the day-to-day that the day-to-day oversight is not with the council. And I know that there's an ordinance in place right now, but even with that ordinance in place, as has been discussed previously, the folks who are council appointees don't necessarily feel that they report to the mayor, or in this case would be reporting to a CAFO. And anybody else, this isn't just something I've worked on, this is a product of many conversations over many months and years, actually.
Thank you. I will say that it is a big shift, and I would love the committee to discuss where we stand on this. It's a big change. I was talking to former Councillor Joe McGivern earlier today around our form of government. And while folks often will say, that we have a sort of Form B style of government, we predate any of the forms. Our charter is unique in terms of how it has, established our financial roles. And the power of the council is very much a strong council form of government. So it is a conversation around what are the pros and cons of doing this. You might say the pros of having a streamlined finance department where everyone has a mayoral appointment with council confirmation, is that you really will see greater internal control from the mayor over the finance team, which is in every DLS recommendation letter as I dove into them, including the audits. But it is a departure of what our form of government has been. Whereas right now we have a mix of positions, some only by the mayor, some only by the council, and some by the mayor with council approval. I'm not sure my own mind on this topic. I'm not. And I will be honest, I was surprised. It's not a surprise to Mr. Casey. He and I talked about this earlier today. When we had our first ordinance meeting on this topic 2 weeks ago, the appointing powers did not come up. It was not on a slide in the presentation. And so when we, got the ordinance language, I was surprised to see that change. And I think that it warrants conversation. And I don't think that it's something that we should do quickly necessarily, or certainly not flippantly, because it is a big change. I think the council and the committee might also consider a compromise approach where maybe it makes sense to do that for some positions, but to retain council control over the auditor, or to, even just to resolve how we feel about the election that occurred around changing the, treasurer from elected to appointed, where the understanding when folks were voting was that it would be a position that was appointed by the council. So approving ordinance changes that streamline all of them to a mayoral appointment with council confirmation means that we would also have to feel okay about making that change. Given that election, I know that it was a low voter turnout, but it was still the result of the body that voted. And also, it would lead to other charter changes that would need to occur as a result. So even if we pass these ordinance changes, there are elements of them that would not go into effect right away as we waited for a home rule petition to go through the process of establishing a charter change at the state legislative level. So I do want to name all those complications, and I would like to hear, what is the will of the body? Where do we stand? How do we think about this? Because it is a big change in front of us that we could consider or deny. Councillor Bacon?
Thank you. So while my objections have been characterized in negative terms by a colleague on the committee, I stand by my words relative to process. It is important that we have the discussions that you're very accurately describing. But those discussions should be coming before we're looking at a legal form. This, sitting there in front of us, makes it seem like this is the working document that we need to edit, accept, or change. And that is not what this is. This is a staff document of what the staff wants. And we just need to be clear about that. And it's not that it's wrong, it just shouldn't be in legal form. It was fine the way it was presented with the charts and the graphs and all that. That's all well and good. And I will ask through the chair to legal, I would like a comparison of how the appointing authority in here sits next to the appointing authority that currently exists. I mean, I know most of it in my head, but I know certainly the new counselors don't. And I'm not against certain appointing authority necessarily being different, but I am definitely in favor of a balance of power between the executive, the mayor of the city, and the city council relative to accountability. The most troublesome change that I see is that we have the auditor position, now called the Director of Internal Audit, that has been a city council appointment for the express purpose of having that position be independent, because there are aspects of that position that should not be controlled by a CEO relative to audit. And so that position was appointed by the city council. There should be certain degrees of independence. Another troublesome thing that I see is the new position of, hang on, I want to make sure I say the name correctly. Jobs. The technical job.
Director of Technical Assistance.
The Director of Technical Assistance job, by my reading, reports to two people, the CAFO and the mayor. Now, the CAFO has always been discussed as an extremely independent position that would be functioning without control from the mayor. But to have an individual, particularly of a technical nature, reporting to both is an odd org structure to have, because who at the end of the day has the last word then? And that becomes an accountability problem. But the most troublesome one is the internal audit function that retains zero independence. And the other thing I find interesting and equally troubling is that where the city council would be approving, and I sort of almost see it as a courtesy, nothing more, nothing less. The removal language is very interesting, because you have a person that's going to be appointed by the CAFO and or the mayor, but then to remove that person, you need a 2/3 vote of the city council. I mean, that makes no sense to me. But I could see if it's a city council appointment, then the 2/3 removal. If it's a mayoral appointment, it feels like window dressing relative to a city council approval of 7 votes. But then it's odd that it would then take 2/3 vote if the mayor decided the mayor didn't want that person in the seat to confirm the mayor's removal, when every order, every movement that's being made by this new council is to make everything by majority vote. So I bring that up as a point of interest and a point of contradiction. But what I really would like, especially for the new members of the committee and the council, is to have the side-by-side of what the appointing authority has been, what the day-to-day supervision has been, because the council gave that to the mayor consciously to help with the accountability path relative to internal controls and accountability and reconciliations, and we see that has not worked, or we wouldn't have 3 years unreconciled. I personally do not believe creating 2 more positions and moving the chairs around on the deck is going to fix the problem. I think the core problem is we need a qualified treasurer. And that's been now delayed for a full year. Now, the chair is absolutely correct. We have to change the charter in order to do the combination. And I don't think anybody's against the combination. Speaking for myself, I'm not against the combination if the office is cleaned up. It makes sense to me, but not when the office is in what the state describes as catastrophic condition. That does not make sense to me. So I think it's not, there are certainly some philosophical differences at play here around the amount, the scope, and the large size of the bureaucracy that we're building for this tiny city. There's definitely disagreement in that regard, but there was total agreement between the council, the public, and okay, if it was 12% for the ballot question, it was 17% for the city council. So they were both very low turnout, if you want to talk about that. We would have had a lot higher vote relative to the appointment if it was in November, but it was delayed due to logistics. But nonetheless, I don't want us to be just doing a workaround of the citizens by creating ordinances and ignoring the charter when the citizens voted on the charter. And they didn't approve the changes in the charter. And I think to just wholesale dismiss the voters because there was a low turnout is not good government. I can understand the desire or perhaps even the thinking that might come out of that. Well, if so few people vote, well, maybe they don't really care. I just am concerned that when we are dismissive of the voters, we just cause more apathy. And I just think we're here to represent the voters. We're not here to just do things because it is the preferred path. And I feel that's what has happened here. I totally acknowledge the mayor has the votes. So I'm only stating my position and my impressions and experience, because I do have experience doing financial turnarounds. I do know how they're done. The scale may be different, but the process is the same. And the key positions that have to be strong are your lead financial positions. And that we've been missing for 4 years. So let's start with what we need the most and then go to the next. And I think it should take into consideration the citizens and what they wanted. But I don't believe the citizens would either be opposed necessarily to combining positions if it made sense and saved them money. The only problem is with the presentation and the theoretical consolidation, there is no savings shown because there's new positions added. So the taxpayers are under a high tax burden. This doesn't save money. It doesn't on its face by itself fix the problem. And we have the state coming in to fix it. And so then I think would be a good time to move forward. But again, I acknowledge I'm speaking to a small audience, and I do respect you for allowing me to say my piece without characterizing it in a negative way, because I believe my thoughts are rational. They're grounded in experience, successful experience in turning around organizations, and out of a desire to try to get a win-win where we are making the systems work better, but not putting yet again another huge tax burden on the citizens.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilor Rivera?
I think for myself, I just gotta decompress from all of that and unpack. my first experience of what I feel like what might be a Holyoke City Council filibuster. But ultimately, I think for me, getting back to the point, the things that stick out to me mostly are particular positions that don't exist right now. And not to say that I don't think that they're valuable. It makes sense in having them. It's just, I would like to see a clearer path to how we're gonna get there, right? For me, it makes sense to have the comptroller. It makes sense to have the IT person, and I'm using that because I don't have the document in front of me right off the rip. It just, how we're gonna get there. Are we trying to do this all in one shot where it will take an impact on the budget, or is it something that we hope to grow to? And then when we're talking about appointment and who is overseeing, I do agree with Councilor Vacan where there has to be a space where we can strike a balance. I don't fully agree with all the stuff she said, but I mean, I agree with the part where if we're trying to do good governance, there should be a space where the council does have some power to as well. If it does lie with the auditor, if it's that, then I guess I would be warm to that too as well. But this is the space, right? This is why Councilor McGrath-Smith kind of has put this together and try to have all of us come together so that we can chat, exchange ideas, and try to find the best way to meet in the middle, for lack of better terms.
Thank you. Councillor Murphy-Rumboletti, and then Councillor Penich.
You, just briefly, I'm not on the committee, but I did say that you wanted to hear how folks felt about certain things. I just wanted to clarify a few things. The Director of Technical Assistance is not a new position. While it was something that in the most recent version was not included, it was included in our initial package that was submitted that was eventually changed because we were trying to compromise. I also feel like it's not that we've been needing to do this for the last 4 years. It's actually been since 2007. And so sometimes when I hear some of these comments about this is actually going to cost the taxpayers more money, this is going to increase our bottom line on the budget, this is going to create new positions. Yes, it's creating new positions, but we got a very clear outline for a while that says that we are eliminating certain positions, and we are also transferring, merging positions, and we had a spreadsheet that was given to us that very clearly outlined that we will actually be saving the city money at a certain point in time. Maybe not the first year, but that also doesn't mean that it's going to increase how much money we're spending. So I think it's really important for folks that are listening that they have the facts on that. And then the last thing I would just say, if folks, if this is our opportunity to talk about where we're at with it, I have always been of the opinion, and this isn't new, this isn't, I'm not coming up with this tonight. I said this 4 years ago. I said this 2 years ago. The city council should not have as much financial oversight as it has right now. And the mayor should have the financial oversight of the city. He is the CEO of our city. It is the executive branch. I will die on this hill, and that's fine if folks don't agree with me, but that's where I will always stand. And so, that being said, similar to what Councilor Rivera just said, if there's a middle ground that we can find here, if folks feel super strongly about the auditor or whatever, if there's a position that we absolutely need financial oversight over, then I guess that's fine. But we have seen very clearly that the CAFO position is supposed to be a neutral position. Though they are appointed by the mayor, there are enough checks and balances in place where they do not answer to the mayor and they don't answer to us. They answer to whatever the numbers say. And we've talked about this so much. And I can understand if folks are feeling like this caught them off guard at the last minute, or if it's just something that we didn't discuss at the last meeting. That's unfortunate that this didn't come up at the last meeting. I wish it did. And I understand if folks need to continue to talk this out, but every single week that we delay this, and it's really unfortunate that we are putting blame on others for delaying something. I think it's not like we're just not dealing with it. It's not like it hasn't come up over the last few meetings. It's not like it's been sitting in the jacket for years. That is delaying. I think working on it and being thoughtful about it is not necessarily delaying something. So I actually kind of take issue with that. But overall, I respect everyone's opinions. I get where everyone's coming from. I just want to say that we've hashed out so much of this, and the initial bill that was filed, the initial order that was filed, had a lot of checks and balances in place already. So I just want to remind people that the CAFO position is not there to answer to the mayor. It's not there to answer to us. It's there to do its job. It's not supposed to be political. And I think by like trying to control which financial departments are appointed by us, appointed by the mayor, blah, blah, blah. Like, it's already confusing. There are already financial department heads who feel that they don't need to answer to the mayor. And then they email me, and I don't have I'm not there on the day to day. So I just think it's important for us to take all of those things into account. And I'm a little disappointed that we're having this conversation now. And I'm not putting blame on anyone. If we need more time, then we need more time. Obviously, folks just do what they feel comfortable with, but it's not, it doesn't have to be as complicated as it's turning into. So thanks everyone for hearing me out.
Thank you. Councillor Panich?
Yeah, I'm afraid that I'm not going to be able to speak to everything that Councillor Bacon brought up, mostly because there's a great deal of it, and I would have had to keep more copious notes than I could under these circumstances. But I thought it might be helpful to hit a few of them. One of them being the concern about the appeal on the mayor's ability to dismiss someone going to the city council and there being a majority vote or a supermajority vote for it. That actually is not an unusual process if you look at state law. There are many situations where the mayor has only limited ability to remove someone from a board or commission. For instance, the planning board. If somebody, once we have confirmed a planning board member, the mayor can try to remove them, but the mayor needs to have cause, and it needs to go to, assuming that the board member wants one, a hearing before the city council. And when you think about it, what you're looking at when the city council does that is a jury situation. There is nothing unusual in requiring a supermajority to act as a jury. And there is nothing unusual about feeling that the issue, if it is an issue for review, should be an issue before a presumably neutral, not involved in this fight, neither appointed nor is attempting to remove the person who the mayor is attempting to remove. So I don't see this as a sop to the city council. It gives us considerable authority and the ability to step in if the mayor is trying to remove somebody because, for instance, they're about to blow the whistle on something, or because he just doesn't like what they might say if we ask them in to report to us. And as the person who is pushing the hardest, I think, for going back to majority rule where it is not otherwise required, I mean where it is not otherwise required. There are situations where it is perfectly valid and logical to ask for a supermajority vote. One of them is right in our charter, where there are things for financial issues, where in fact, you can't pass them except by supermajority vote if the vote is the same day they come up. And you can go back to a majority vote if there's time for everybody to consider it. And you can see that as you don't want anybody stampeded by a emergency appeal. And it had better be good if you want instant approval. Whereas if you let everybody go home and think about it first, you know that they've thought and there's less danger of an imprudent vote just because everybody has been spooked. So, I advocate for this. I advocate it for situations where there is no good reason why you need a supermajority vote. It is not incorporated elsewhere. It is not a state requirement, and it does nothing but restrict our ability to act flexibly and quickly in face of complicated situations, or to experiment where we can't get everybody on board. So I don't see a contradiction here at all. And as for making changes, I don't think anybody wants to override the will of the voters. I think that we've had time to think about this. I don't see what value we get from it. The voters did not have an opportunity to vote on whether they would have preferred a mayoral appointment to a city council appointment. That was not on the ballot. There were 574 votes for a city council appointed treasurer. I think those 574 people are important. I think that we should take their views into account to the extent that we know what their views are. But we honestly don't know whether what they wanted was a appointed treasurer because our current treasurer was out there urging them to please fire him. It's hard to know what the will of the body or the will of the people really is under those circumstances. And, you know, you can say, and I have said I agree that there are problems when there's only 17% voter turnout. There was only 17% voter turnout for the city council elections 2 years ago. But the fact remains that, for instance, our leader, or President Tessa, with her strong feelings about this, got upwards of 2,900 votes, which I think tells you something about the will of the people. And I know that there were other picky technical things in there that I wanted to address, but I would have to go back and re-listen and take notes, I'm afraid. Plus, I know we want to get through this. I do support the changes here. I think there are technical issues that a red line would help with, but it's been 20 years. Changing the personnel has not fixed this. If I thought that simply getting a treasurer with better academic qualifications would, I would be all on board with it. It's just that I don't see why changing this up one more time will help. We've changed the mayor multiple times in these 20 years. We have changed the city council's composition considerably. It hasn't fixed it. It's time to try something different. And on to the next person in queue.
Thank you, Councillor Penich. Councillor Devine, thank you.
Thank you very much. I'll make it short. My history tells me that we are the legislative branch. The mayor is the executive branch. And as many times as I've always said it, if you look up above the president's podium, it says, makers of law, makers of history. And that's what we're supposed to be doing. We are not the executive branch, in my opinion. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Devine. Is there anyone else from the council who's in attendance tonight or in the committee who would like to weigh in at this point, either with comments or with questions? Okay. So my next question is, in terms of where we move forward, we have the document in front of us. There are a number of Scrivener's errors and small changes that I think need to occur if we do want to move it forward. I'm also not hearing any other folks who want to see changes made. So if we do want to move forward with this as such, it moves to a streamlined appointment power where all positions, including the auditor, are underneath the appointment of the mayor with approval by council. If that's not hearing anyone say, I would like to make an amendment.
I would like to make a motion.
Okay, Councillor Bacon.
My motion is that we get the redlined version so that we can see what is changing in the appointment authority compared to what it is now, so that when we're looking at it, we know what the council will not be doing and what the mayor will be doing, and to look for consistency throughout the document relative to appointing and removing, and we can say we don't know what was in the minds of the voters, but we do know what the voters voted for. in small numbers or large numbers, and we can argue all day long. There would have been more numbers if it was at a different time, which I was in favor of in November. However, the will of the voters cannot be second guessed to say, well, maybe they would have done this if something else happened. I mean, that's just speculative, and we need to deal with what we have. And we can't throw away our charter, even though a number of folks on the council don't like the charter. So I would like to see the red line. I'd like to see the side-by-side. And then we will also, I think in charter and rules, have to look at where we're at with what votes the city council took relative to the charter that will then have to be included in a home rule petition should this be moving forward. Because some of the things in this legal form can't happen without a charter change, if I'm reading it right. I may be wrong, and Attorney Bissonnette can correct me if I am, but I think we need a charter change to do what's in this ordinance, especially around treasurer collector. So,
Solicitor
you know.
Bissonnette, would you mind describing the charter changes that would be required by this ordinance package, specifically connected to the treasurer collector and the auditor?
I think section 15 would need to be edited to reflect the ordinance change. But as I recall, I don't have it in front of me right now, but the substantive change was made by the voters to eliminate the election of the treasurer and make it appointed. The other positions under 15 are, except for the clerk, are appointed. So I don't think there is a heck of a lot of editing. I think the technical decision that really should be made is to combination of collector with treasurer. We could clean that up in the charter when we submit the revisions, depending on how you decide on the appointment powers.
Thank you. Yes, under section 15 of our charter, the city council currently is named as electing by ballot a collector of taxes, or tax collector, and also one assessor of taxes and one water commissioner, and then one treasurer. So all of those are named. I was just looking through also for auditor. To see if where is that
Assessors
named?
annually, there are 3 assessors. I think the council elects one each January, I believe. Same with the water
just did
commission.
it.
Yep. So then it's one assessor. Thank you, Solicitor Bissonnette. But that's also each year, so they rotate through. So they're staggered
assessor.
terms, or is it just the chief assessor that we're named as appointing or electing, rather?
You guys appoint the board of assessors. So, and
It's
I
all
know,
3.
yeah, and this has come up, there's been confusion in the recent past because we had such, not a lot of turnover in that office, but we've had some turnover since where, you know, what's an assessor that's hired and works full-time for the city versus a member of the board that can actually take a vote on abatements and so on and sets the values. And sometimes, you know, you have people that fit both criteria, and then sometimes, you know, like we had somebody recently in that office that was hired, but couldn't be appointed as a member of the board because she didn't live in Holyoke. And more recently, we have somebody that was hired that was able to serve both roles.
Thank you. I also want to name that the mayor has asked to speak. Mayor Garcia.
Good evening, everybody, and thank you so much, Madam Chair. So the role of the auditor, and I've always said this since this was presented 3 years ago. Completely okay with that role being appointed by the council. And this was prior to me at that time understanding that to get, like, if I'm gonna get a CAFO, if I gave in and supported the idea of having the treasurer being supported by the, appointed by the council, to have the treasurer collector and the auditor, that's your checks and your balance right there between the executive and legislative. So I'm all, just so you're aware, I think it makes a lot of sense to have the auditor appointed by the council and everything else, the executive functions of the city, certainly by the mayor. But, you know, and this, just adding this to the discussion, but obviously whatever the consensus is, I embrace, because I just want to move forward with the urgency of what's more important here, and that's restructuring so that we can keep up with the 20 years of deferment of the concerns. Thank you.
Thank you. I will say from my own perspective, it's a big shift. I do see the value of, and it is in every DLS report and audit, I do see the value of wanting as many financial officers as possible underneath the control of the mayor. And I think that there is the ordinance that we have created that gives the capacity for discipline, for example, and for day-to-day management. But I do think that it does shift someone's perspective when they're clearly appointed by council versus appointed by the mayor. I do, however, like the idea of having the auditor be a council appointment. And I don't know if that's a compromise that I alone am interested in. There may be others who really do want to see all of the appointments be mayoral appointments with council approval. And so I'd love to know, you know, am I alone in that? Because if I'm not, then I would put forward an amendment for us to shift that in this ordinance language. But if, you know, to the will of the body, there's no support for that, then I certainly wouldn't stand in its way. And so I'd love to hear if other folks are interested in that amendment, or if we would like to keep the language as it currently stands. Councilor Rivera?
Motion to make an amendment to have the council be the appointing body for the auditor's office. And is there a way that I can incorporate that, like, because technically we won't be able to see the day-to-day, but like have the CAFO, when the CAFO comes on, be a part of that along with the mayor's office, so that way it kind of keeps that piece, if it makes sense.
Yes. Yep. I would second that motion. Under discussion, I see Councilor Sullivan in council with his hands up. Yep.
Yep. So first of all, just a couple of comments in regards to our role as a legislative branch and the mayor as an executive branch. I'd remind everybody that in the legislative branch of our government, we have something called the House Ways and Means Committee, all right, which very much has a lot of oversight over financial transactions. And as we know in our council, we also have a finance committee, and that is there also to oversee the financial health of the city. All right, so I don't see a conflict or an overstepping between the legislative and the executive duties here. All right. As far as the changes in the form in front of us now, while they do appear to be staff changes, over the weekend at the Mass Municipal Association, I spent quite a bit of time with both Sean Cronin and Deb Wagner from the Department of Local Services from DOR, and they're very much in favor of all this, and they've reviewed it thoroughly, and quite a few of these, although they are pure staff changes, they are the recommendations of DLS, as I see it. And just one, as far as the cost of this transitional form to the CAFO structure and the overhaul of the financial structure. Although it may appear on the surface to have some slight increases in salary positions, and that's debatable one way or the other, those are totally offset by the savings we'll see in interest, fines, outside services, redundancy in other departments, bond rating, right down the whole list of things, all right? So I'm not burdened by any of that, and the only two real changes I would like to see are what we've just discussed, the auditor to remain as a city council appointee, and also some of the job requirements would need to be tightened up a little, in my opinion, particularly when it comes to the IT director. If you read that, starts with a bachelor's degree or higher in information technology, which I'm all in favor of. That's wonderful. Or possession of a high school diploma, associate's degree, and relative experience. I'm not down with that at all. So those are my two biggest concerns.
Thank you. And I think we hopefully can get to that level of, I want to change this line to say X.
Yep.
Yes. I'm going to write a note to come back to that. I see Councillor Murphy-Ramboletti's hand up.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to, you did ask a question of us, and I just wanted to weigh in. I don't feel strongly about us needing to appoint the auditor, but I would be willing to compromise on that if it's what moves this forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wants to speak on that before we vote on that motion? Okay. On the motion, because we're hybrid, do I have to do roll call vote on this one? I think so. Let's do a little roll call votes on these little Scrivener errors. Maybe we'll package a couple together. So on the motion for us to amend, this is under section 2-131, the Director of Internal Audit section. We would be striking out Chief Administrative and Financial Officer and instead replacing it with the City Council. So it would say, the Director of Internal Audit shall be appointed by the City Council, and then gives a description of a Director of Audit is, is a term of up to 3 years, et cetera, et cetera. I'm just pausing as we're adding it into the live draft. Jeffrey, do you want to put that draft up on the screen so folks can see it? So it says the Director of Internal Audit shall be appointed in accordance with Section 15 of the City Charter, because that in and of itself names, refers back to the council. Okay, a roll call vote in favor of that amendment. Councillor Vacan?
Yes.
Councillor Talheimer?
Yes.
Councillor Penich?
Yes.
Councillor Rivera?
Yes.
Did I call on everyone? I think I did. Oh, Councillor McGrath-Smith, myself. Yes. I was like, there's one more. Who is it? It's me. Okay, thank you. I want to return to Mike Sullivan. You had an amendment you wanted to look at for the qualifications for the IT director.
Should we take up item 4 so we have them up together as a package?
Sure. Yeah, motion to take up item 4 along with 3 for the discussion around job descriptions.
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Councillor Sullivan, do you remember exactly which line that was on in the document, or what section? I can search.
It's under education.
So
Okay, so this is under section 2, and you will notice one of the Scrivener errors that we have to shift is section 2 and then dash 293 was repeated twice. So the Director of Technical Assistance section becomes section 2/294, and we'll want to vote to amend that. And then move to Counselor Sullivan's question around qualifications. Counselor Sullivan, do you want to name what you would like to see changed here?
Yes, that's in section 2-293. Item 1,
C.
1C, right? What I would like to see struck is from the point or possession of a high school diploma on down.
Okay. So Counselor
Second.
Sullivan.
I'll second that.
Thank you, has made a motion and seconded by Vacan. Counselor Sullivan, can we include in your motion that we would retitle this section 2-294?
Okay,
And
so-
also amend to remove the or possession of a high school diploma or associate's degree after that whole section after, to strike through that section.
All right, so
Okay, under
this-
discussion? Yeah,
And that we also change it in the job description.
thank you. Under discussion, Counselor Sullivan, your thoughts on this?
well, I think I made my thoughts pretty clear already, that we've got a great qualification here, a bachelor's degree or higher in information technology, public administration, business administration, or an equivalent field. To add to that, or possession of a high school diploma, or you just lower the standard in the bar on the whole thing, and you might as well have opened it up to kindergarten class. So I would just like to see that entire final sentence from or possession of a high school diploma or associate's degree and 7 to 10 years relevant experience in municipal management, all right, which is not, doesn't say anything about IT, to perform the duties of the office.
Thank you. Okay, under discussion, Counselor Penich?
Yes, I think I'm inclined to agree with Counselor Sullivan. My only question here, and I think that it is contradicted by the language about municipal experience, is do we want to exclude the tech guy who quit high school or quit college and has been an absolute wizard someplace ever since? Because those people exist. And I don't know that they would be interested in coming to work for the city of Holyoke for a limited salary and limited job growth. But is there any mechanism by which, if somebody like that did apply, we could talk to them? And if not, otherwise, I completely agree that this provision should be struck because it does lower the standard.
Kelly Curran, are you online with us still?
I am.
Would you mind weighing in on this? We're discussing
You have to
possibly.
repeat the question.
Yeah, so we're discussing in the IT director role, wanting to keep the requirement for a bachelor's degree or higher, and removing the remainder of that section that says like or possession of a high school diploma or associate's degree and years of experience. Our fear is just in lowering the bar. What's your thoughts on that, Kelly?
This is the Director of Technical Assistance, right? Not IT.
Yes, sorry. We keep calling it the IT
I just-
director. Yes, sorry.
So,
Should call it.
yeah. I'm torn because there's sometimes experience outweighs education. We can have someone fresh out of college that does not know what they're doing and they have a degree, and we can have someone who's been doing similar work for years that doesn't have a degree.
But we're requiring experience.
Counselor Sullivan, thank you.
I disagree with that, because we've spelled it out specifically in the beginning of this, right? With 3 to 5 years previous successful experience. So that's not someone fresh out of college.
Right.
Okay. Thank you, Counselor Sullivan. Counselor Murphy-Ramboletti?
Thank you. I guess I was just gonna kind of echo just Kelly's comments that I've worked with folks who don't necessarily, the last job that I had for the last 8 years didn't require a bachelor's degree. And I understand that there's a lot of positions in City Hall where someone could have a bachelor's degree and yet no experience using financial software because that's not something they learned. I think, just me personally, it's more useful for us to have someone who has relevant experience, and this says that we would require at least 7 to 10 years of relevant experience, which I think makes up for the gap of not necessarily having the bachelor's degree in those fields. Also, like, I have a history degree, and like I'm not doing anything with my history degree, and I think that's more and more common these days, where folks might go to college and they end up working in a field that has nothing to do with what they went to college for. So I just think that kind of approach isn't what's best for the position necessarily. That being said, I didn't know, Madam Chair, if it would be possible for a position like this, does TJ have any insight as someone who's worked in this field? If not, totally fine, but thank you.
Yes. TJ Plant, would you have any interest in weighing in here, just in terms of what you've seen in the communities that you've worked with?
Just give me 1 second so I can get set up. And
Take
so
your
are
time.
we talking
Welcome.
just the director of technical assistance?
Yes, just in terms of the job qualifications and whether or not
Yeah,
we should shift the requirements.
I think having options is always the best possibility. So if you find someone that's maybe doesn't have a degree but has been doing it for a long time, and they come in and they're qualified, I think that's great. If you find someone that's straight out of college or straight out of master's degree, is great. So more and more HR is shifting to opening up the options. It's harder and harder to fill positions, especially technical positions like this. So I would definitely say keep your options open is probably the best way to put it, because I think it just really is important to find the right person.
Chair.
Thank you. Counselor Bacon?
Through the chair to TJ. So are you recommending we do this for all of the positions listed here? I'm not seeing that carved out for the others.
Excellent question. I would say, when it comes to some of the other positions, you want a lot more technical experience.
But they're all senior level.
Correct. And this is an industry that has a number of options of how people get to being a director of technical assistance. It's not just, there's, people in their basements and in their house just working on coding, and they've learned how to do it all, and they're self-taught, that may be able to do everything you need them to do. There are folks that go to college directly for this exact job or type of job, and then there's others that go get advanced degrees, masters, or what have you, that can do this. I know everyone that runs the gamut in this business, and it's not a business that is like a town manager. Typically it's master's required, you've got X years of experience, and you become a town manager, and that is, something that should be considered. Whether, CAFO, I have to look at the CAFO requirements again, but usually masters and 10 years experience for a senior level job that's going to be doing what Holyoke's asking the CAFO to do. So, but I would say specifically for this position, keep your options open. Just, make sure that you truly test the qualities. We work, in my OA is a tech company, and we've been making sure that when we interview folks, that we give them a basic test to make sure that they can do what they say they can do, whether it's coding, whether it's munis, which you have, whether it's reporting, whether it's data analysis, just to make sure that that is something that they can do. And
Can I just follow up before?
Sure.
Thank you very much. Can I ask this then? Would you be supportive of taking the language that goes with the bachelor's and the 3 to 5, previous successful experience in a municipal management role, and adding that after the lower educational requirements rather than relevant experience? Have the qualifying language be the same? Previous successful experience in a municipal management role. So at least the expectation and the standard of the experience is the same.
yeah, yes, I would say if you want to do,
And I'm just throwing it
I
out
don't,
there.
well, I know, and I don't know if municipal experience is fully required, but I think it's definitely helpful. Because they can come from a whole host of data management companies and not necessarily have quote unquote municipal experience, and I don't know if you want to rule them out.
Well, we have that in the other part of the qualifications.
Right, and that's the question.
So I'm only pointing it out because where we have higher educational requirements, we have higher municipal experience, and then when we lower the educational requirements, we lower the municipal experience. So that to me is contrary.
So if I could weigh in here, I actually think in some ways, I'm actually worried about the word municipal in here, and because it says that it shall be especially fitted by education, training, and either 3 to 5 years previous successful experience in a municipal management role and possession of a bachelor's degree or higher, and then possession of a high school diploma or associate's degree and 7 to 10 years relevant experience in a municipal management role. IT, people move around a lot. It's really normal for someone to change jobs every 3 to 5 years. There's a lot of movement. It's actually just part of the culture and the field. The goal is to get cross-trained in as many things as you can and move from thing to thing as you collect skills and capacities. And so, the person that you get, and I appreciate what TJ said, usually you give someone a practical interview where you literally give them tasks and make sure they can do them and do them well. And so I'm not sure that we would necessarily need someone who came with municipal management experience or any municipal experience.
So we'd say IT rather than.
Well, right, because this is going to be someone who is an IT director. I wouldn't want us to create qualifications that really narrow who we can hire, knowing what I know about the IT market in Western Massachusetts.
Right. But you do want the high qualifications, so it's a senior level job.
Correct. Although a bachelor's degree in IT is what's expected. Almost no one has higher than a bachelor's degree because a lot of the work that you're doing is technical in nature and you're learning constantly as you're going and picking up qualifications as you go. Mm-hmm. So I think, I'm nervous about making it too specific, knowing what I know about how people cross-train and move and are very flexible and dynamic in the field. So I think I would actually rather, remove what it says around municipal and just put IT, right? Like experience in an IT management role. And I'm tempted to leave the language as it is just to create as much flexibility as possible. My husband's in IT. I know a lot of people who are in IT. There's a lot of people who are, not necessarily don't have a bachelor's degree, and they might, but they usually don't have more than that. So I just think that you want to more create a system where you're hiring someone with the skills that are required rather than worrying about what is necessarily on paper for IT, which is a very different thing than other roles for people who we would hire. Okay, I see some hands up. Councilor Thalheimer.
Excellent, thank you. Let me lower my hand. So if this is a skills-based position, the bachelor's degree, associate's degree, all that seems to me less relevant. Mm-hmm. I think what the underpinning of this conversation is assuming is that a bachelor's degree means you are qualified in the field. And we have discussed extensively that this is not necessarily the case. I'm also in favor of keeping this as open as possible to find the right fit for this job. I don't think we should be limiting it based only on whether someone graduated with a 4-year degree. I feel pretty strongly about this. I get what people are saying. Other folks have made really good relevant points, but I really think it's important to keep this open for the right hire. Thank you.
Okay, Councilor Rivera, and then Councilor Murphy-Ramboletti, and then hopefully we can move to vote.
I think for me, it's understanding the difference of what we're requesting, because I'm hearing IT, which is one thing, and on the other end, I'm hearing Director of Technical Assistance. They can both share certain responsibilities, but I can see them also doing different things. So for me, it's having a better understanding of what we're asking. Are we doing Director of Technical Assistance, and how different is that than IT?
TJ, would you mind weighing in on that? Because I'm actually wondering if it even, is there a value in keeping that term, the Director of Technical Assistance versus IT Director? And is there a difference between the two? Because I think we're all sort of saying, IT Director.
Yeah, I think IT Director just flows a lot better than Director of Technical Assistance. I just think when you say IT Director, and Rory, you can correct me, or Mayor, you can correct me if I'm wrong, will command a salary that may be beyond your salary range, or Kelly, you can correct me if I'm wrong. So I think this is where the city landed in terms of the titles to get somebody that's been qualified, may have like certificates. If they don't have a degree, they'll have a certificate potentially in Citrix, cybersecurity, any of the other data like Power BI, all those things that would give them great qualifications, but I'm just not sure.
Not to cut you off, but
No, go ahead.
it kind of sounds a little contradictory for me, right? Like, we're looking for someone with all the qualifications, but we don't want to call it that. Is that kind of, because if we're gonna take out the high school diploma stuff and the lower qualifications, right, then it would be a Director of Technical Assistance. But if we're trying to get the higher qualified person, I guess I don't know. I'm trying to understand where,
The distinction?
yeah, what we're trying to do here. Because if we're trying to get someone at a lower level, then why would we try to eliminate high school diploma and all the lower level qualifications, right? If we want someone at a higher level, then we should call it what it is.
Right. And I mean, I have looked up a little bit of what a Director of Information Technology makes, but I can tell you it's going to be probably closer to $200,000 a year. And a Director of Technical Assistance will make less than that, depending on that. So it's just a matter of what the city of Holyoke's willing to pay for the position. And I don't know if that throws off, and this is more of an HR question than it is a consultant question, of if it throws off the salary schedule and the salary ranges of the organization as a whole.
Thank you, because for me, I had questions.
Yeah, if I confused you, I apologize. That wasn't my intention.
No, you didn't confuse me. You didn't confuse me. From the beginning, even before, I had questions about this particular role the most out of anything, because it's not clearly flushed out to me as to what the responsibilities are. If it's IT, then it's IT, right? But if it's Director of Technical Assistance, which could mean anything, because it doesn't just necessarily mean IT. It can mean that you're helping someone else with something else. It's technical assistance. It can mean anything.
It's not a senior job.
For me, it's just trying to figure out where we're landing at specifically, so that we know what we're requesting, and then we can know what the expectation is for the job description, if that's the case. Because if we're asking for something at a lower level, then it should be okay if we're asking for something at a lower level. If that makes sense, right? Like, we shouldn't be asking for someone with a bachelor's or master's degree for something that's going to be paid at a lower level grade, if that's the case.
I want to say that it seems like we're circling around this, and I understand why, because it's a new position. And so folks, are really trying to just get clarity on what is this role that we're saying that we're asking it to do. We did look at the job description 2 weeks ago. And I do think that the job description, from my eyes, seemed to align with the salary that we were looking at. In our area, you might see an IT director, paid more around the 130 range. So I do think that it's a little tricky to look at the grade 13 in terms of the mid being 111. And so I do think that the goal perhaps here is to try to strike a compromise in having lower qualifications so that we can hire someone more at that 111 range instead of having to have someone at grade 14 or 15 and get closer to that 120 or 130 mid. Because I think we're trying to right size it to the city and also to the city budget. So I do think that that's where we're at. And I think given that, I wonder if it makes sense to move on from this issue, because I think we've sort of now named like why we have this range of qualifications, and it's because it's tied to the job description and to the grade 13. Councilor Bacon, and then I want to move to the next issue.
So the difficulty I'm having with this is, on the one hand, we're saying it's a senior level job, and then on the other hand, we're saying we're paying less because it's lower qualifications, and it sounds more like a support job than a senior management job. And if you want to keep the lower qualifications in, we still need to have the requirement in my view, for this successful IT management in the least, if you're lowering the qualifications. I just don't see the support in the money or the qualifications to call it a senior level job. I mean, if it's a lower level job, we maybe shouldn't include it in the ordinance as a senior level job. But that's my view on it. I'm not in favor of adding this position. It wasn't in, we were barely breaking even without it in. And I see that the bones of the structure is going to happen. Why can't the financial aspects get pushed through and then evaluation take place once the CAFO's in, and let the CAFO build their office, rather than us saying you're going to have this and this and these qualifications? But that's my perspective. Thank you.
Thank you. Kelly Curran.
Hi, thank you. I wasn't sure if it would be helpful to go over the job description again, but to Councilor Bacon's point about waiting for a CAFA to go, I can tell you we need somebody in a role like this really badly. Novus gives us some support, but our systems, just like the treasurer's office and my team work together to upgrade Munis for payroll and accrual and other functions, personal actions, things like that. We need somebody to work on getting the data together. For example, I don't want to, it's almost 9, so I don't want to keep you guys so long, but there are multiple financial departments and the permitting departments that have separate systems that they keep the same data in. This is highly inefficient, and all of the department heads are at their capacity. So there's no one to take on the work of creating efficiencies, which would make us more friendly to business owners and other folks that need permitting and licenses and all those things. So this position is overdue, actually, because Novus can't give us this level of support. They help us here and there for things that are needed in terms of the network and stuff, but we need somebody that can support our data, our IT, and just special projects to get us where we need to be. So I don't think that it should wait for the CAFO, but it is not at the level of CAFO.
Thank you, Ms. Curran. So I do think that we have to amend this section, at least to correct that Scrivener's error. So I'd like to make a motion that we change the Director of Technical Services section from section 2-293 to 2-294. And then a quick roll call vote on that. Councilor Rivera.
And can we add an amendment to that motion as well? Because that's just a technical Scrivener's thing. That we amend the language under C to say previous successful experience in an IT management role. And if the will of the committee is to keep in the lower educational qualifications, to also add in, after 7 to 10 years, successful experience in an IT management role.
Okay,
So at least
so an amendment has been made to the motion to strike municipal where it appears twice in section C and replace it with IT.
And then to add that descriptor of the qualifications to the bachelor's level and the high school level.
Okay, just on that amendment of striking out municipal where it appears twice in both sections of C and replace it with IT. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, so the new motion is to change it to 2-294 and to replace municipal where it is with IT.
And I believe Counselor Sullivan wanted to be recognized.
Councilor Sullivan?
Yes, thank you. I had one final comment before you went ahead with this, after listening to TJ and the rest. Listen, the qualifications in this discussion about IT and technical, all of this, come on. Even TJ said, at least some certificates. There's not even a mention of having a certificate, all right, of any kind of, any form. So I went back and now I'm taking a look at the budget from the last fiscal year. $905,000 for computer system administration. $905,000. $419,000 of that, right? Nearly half of it went to consulting services.
Yep.
All right? This is ridiculous. But we're going to say that somebody that, you know, can do coding in their basement or have a high school diploma and some vague municipal experience, there's our savings right there. All right? And that's hiring a qualified person with the proper credentials. All right? That's all I got to say. $905,000 on computer system administration.
And the only certificate in here is to be a certified public purchasing official. It's not a technology certificate
Yeah.
in this ordinance draft. So I withdraw my motion and support Counselor Sullivan's original motion. I think he made it as a motion.
He did, but as not as a member of the committee, so we couldn't
I'm
move
not-
forward with it.
If you don't do it tonight, somebody does it tonight, you're going to hear it from me on the floor on Tuesday.
So-
Or whenever it does come to the floor.
Well, so we have two items in front of us. And I want to name that someone else could make a motion to change the grade. Someone could say, I feel really strongly that this needs to be grade 14 instead of 13. I think we're not going to hire someone at this level, and thus we have to be able to make this shift in Schedule A.
No.
Right? That is absolutely something that a member of the committee could do.
I would like to make a motion that we change the qualifications to include previous successful experience in an IT management role.
Yes, so we have currently in front of us.
In both places.
Yes, and that
as the
exists
language
already in our
currently
motion that we have in
exists.
front of us. So let's do a roll call vote just on that. Councilor Rivera?
So we just be clear on what we're voting on, can you repeat?
We're changing where it says municipal in both places of C to IT. And we're changing it just to section 294 because we have two sections of 293.
Okay, I guess.
So do you see where it says municipal management role?
I see that.
We're going to change that to IT management role.
And
We're not-
put it
we're not leaving
in both
IT.
places.
so that there's more flexibility, because it may not be a municipal experience they have, it might be in private business.
And we're
Okay.
also adding it after 10 years.
Yep.
I guess, yes.
Okay. Counselor Talheimer,
Yes.
Counselor Panich,
Yes.
Counselor Bacon,
Yes.
Counselor McGrath Smith, yes. Okay. In terms of other small changes that I had caught when I went through and redlined it, there's one section underneath the CAFO that I would like to look at. If folks can go to the CAFO section, which is 2-292, and I want to look at the search section. I'll just give folks a minute to get there. Okay, so if you look underneath 292 and then go down to D, section 2, selection of CAFO, and then D. So it's line 220. If you have the numbers, I don't know if some of you do, some of you
Starts
don't.
with the screening committee? Shall
Yeah.
recommend?
So it says the screening committee shall recommend to the mayor the names of not less than 2, no more than 5 candidates whom it believes to be best suited to perform the duties of the CAFO. If the screening committee determines that there are not at least 2 candidates qualified to perform the duties of CAFO, the screening committee shall report to the mayor that it is unable to complete its assigned task. In that event, the mayor shall direct the screening committee to reopen the search. And the thing that gave me pause about that is what happened to us recently with the police chief search, where the screening committee did its due diligence. It had a number of candidates. It had 2 final candidates that put forward, and then one of the candidates withdrew their name. And so it made me nervous to name that in that event, you have to start from scratch all over again. And so for that reason, I wasn't sure if we should keep that line, or if there was some other exception we were supposed to put in, because it just seems like there may be situations where in the end, as you go through that process, you end up with only one person. We've seen that happen recently. So
It happened with police chief in the past.
yes, and so I'm
We
wondering.
didn't start over.
Well, yeah, especially because it may come down to 2 folks and someone sees the writing on the wall, sees someone else is going to get it, and decides, I'm just going to bow out.
Right, but
So I'm a little nervous about us having that line in here, and I'm wondering if anyone has a similar fear, or if they want to keep that line, or if we want to shift it in some way.
so if I may.
Yes, Rivera, and then Counselor Bacon.
Yeah, I'm okay with keeping the line. I think
Okay.
for me, it's finding safeguards in place in case that does happen. Like, who will be the interim, filling in the space, making sure that things are still flowing until we hire someone. For me, it's important to make sure that when we're in that process, that we tried to hire the best candidate possible. And if it means that there wasn't a best candidate possible and you got to start all over again, that's okay. I don't really believe in hiring someone just because you went through the whole process, and there has to be a result. That's just my opinion.
Okay, thank you. Counselor Bacon?
So from how I read it, as long as the committee was able to recommend forward 2 or more, if they later drop out, it doesn't mean that they weren't recommended. And I think the 60-day appointing authority protects the mayor from being nowhere if the committee has to start over.
Okay, all right. So it sounds like we're all right with keeping it as is. Are there any other questions that folks want to raise before we talk through the residency piece? Yes, Counselor Bacon?
So there was one position where the reporting was to 2 people.
The IT director was to the CAFO and the mayor, that one?
Yeah, and I think it should be to the CAFO,
Okay,
because it's a supportive role to the financial system. I don't know why you would separate that and create a lack of line of authority to the CAFO for that one job. It doesn't make sense to me.
Mr. Casey?
Just to clarify, did the title change?
Sorry, the Director of Technical Assistance.
No, that's fine.
No.
'Cause but to answer that, because that was something that we did discuss internally, and Kelly hit on it. There's all the finance stuff, right? But then there are things that complement the finance stuff, but fall under departments that are not the purview of the CAFO, right? The building commissioner, the director of the Board of Health, the planning department, the way our GIS system talks to our permitting system talks to this, that, and the other thing. You know, the types of phones we might, be using, all those types of things, staff trainings. That's why there was kind of a, yes, it falls under this department, but there may be things that the mayor would assign, as well. That's why that was there. But
Okay.
however.
So in any event, my concern, it should be either the mayor or the CAFO. I'm not saying which one I think it should be, but I think it should be one or the other. Because a person can't keep two people happy if they're equal authority over them.
I hear you,
And the
Councilor
CAFO is
Bacon.
supposed
Although
to
I
be-
do also understand what we're
I
saying
get
here,
it,
that
but
there
the
may be
CAF
some non-financial pieces that the mayor is going to address with the Director of Technical Assistance.
But the CAFO is supposed to be uniquely independent. So you're starting to muddy those waters when you start merging co-management lines.
I mean, I'll just say that it seems that it's the will of the body to move this position in less of a technical assistance role and more of a IT position. And chief, I'm not going to say chief information officer, because that would take us to grade 17 if we were.
It didn't really,
we
didn't do
if we
that
need-
though.
Oh, well, no, but some of it, changing the, not focusing on municipal,
Saying IT.
naming IT,
Yep.
naming, it all makes sense. It makes perfect sense what the body's trying to do. I would say in that case, then it really could just fall underneath the auspices of the CAFO. And that could be the administration, portion of that department. But that's just one person's opinion, but just these have been, all the conversations that have gone into this.
Madam Chair, if I may.
Yes, Councilor Rivera.
So just like to Rory's point, like when I asked the question, it was just to really flush out what it is that we're looking for in the role, because if it is IT, then it's IT. If it's not, then if it's a combination, then it's a combination. But for me, for me to better understand where it stands, it's like I know the job description says certain things, but like if someone is saying IT and I'm hearing IT, I'm thinking IT. But if we're saying there's municipal stuff too as well, so like I'm not trying to say to eliminate the municipal piece, because I know you said at the will of the body, Mr. Casey, but that's not the approach I took when I asked my question. My approach is trying to figure out what it is that is being requested with the paperwork or in the job description of the person in the position. That's why I asked the way I asked. Regarding like what is it that we're expecting them to do? Is it going to be some IT stuff? Okay. Is it also going to be that they're doing municipal stuff too at the same time? Okay, then that's a whole different position, and it's not necessarily an information communications person. That is more of a director of technical assistance. But it's for me to have that better understanding of what it is that we're expecting this role to do. Because if I'm hearing IT, I'm going to look specifically at IT things. And that's why I asked that question. Thank you for kind of like pointing that out, because that's where I was at with that. Thank you.
Yeah, it sounds, so I just pulled up the job description again. And we have under the first bullet point, organize and implement a centralized information systems center as authorized by the CAFO. Act as the system administrator for the Munis EERP system. And then it names, also the GIS system. So, which of course is used by, conservation, planning, building. So I do think that it is a mix. Now, are all those things also underneath IT? Yes. Right. So like every company you could imagine, you could be like a leather wholesaler. You have an IT director, right? And so they're going to do whatever it is that you need. It could be accounting. It could be just systems processing. It could be payroll. It could they're going to weigh in where they need to weigh in, where there is support needed for information systems. So I don't think that by saying IT instead of municipal, that means that we're not going to have them, working in, to support Munis or working to support the GIS system. Just in that first bullet point where we talk about a centralized information system center, I think that names it, that we're really talking about all facets of this job.
And the system administrator for Munis, that's huge, because that's where
It
you
is
get the
huge.
savings. So you have to have somebody who can do that.
Well, and I think that's why they have to be underneath the CAFO and also the mayor, because I do think that there are things that the director of technical assistance are going to be doing that are very much outside of the finance department, as Mr. Casey named. They're going to be maybe supporting because the building department needs some functionality, and so they're trying to make sure they have it.
But the CAFO could delegate them to help another department.
They could, although, I mean, yes, I think, it might feel like, is it a man with two masters, because, you have the CAFO and the mayor, but I also think that because the CAFO is also going to be, an appointment of the mayor, and also going to be, effectively, acting in the interests of the executive, department, I think that I don't see there going to be conflict in naming that.
You're mixing up the org chart and the lines of accountability and authority. It's blurring it. It's not making it more efficient.
Well, then
It's
ultimately,
making
we
it-
just have to say the mayor then, because you can't say it's only the CAFO, because the CAFO is not going to direct the director of technical assistance towards the GIS system.
It should be the highest power person. I think if you're gonna pick two, you gotta pick the highest one. Because at the end of the day, the CAFO works for the mayor.
I see TJ Plant has raised his hand.
Yeah, I mean, Meg, I think Counselor, you just kind of purpose or kind of what I was going to say. I'll lower my hand, but the compromise language, I would say, whether it's under the CAFO or the mayor, but it's in consultation with the CAFO, because as every city and town has, they're disparate systems that are just not necessarily fully financially related, but they all end up speaking. So if you're talking building permits, well, that's revenue. That's ultimately going to come into Munis if you don't have, Munis ones. So there's just a lot of collaboration that needs to happen between the CAFO and the mayor to say, do we want to do a time and attendance system? Do we want to do upgrade? You guys just upgraded Munis, but I understand the schools in the city are not quite on the same platform yet, and we're working towards that. But it's like those are the things you want, and I don't think it matters where it comes from, as long as they collaborate and say, okay, if you go do and I keep going to building permits, because we went with a building permit system that was it was a great system, but it was hard to match to Munis. So we had to do a lot of back end work and just understanding what goes into that.
Where does he see the IT usually? Through you, if we can ask him.
Through to TJ, Councilor Bacon has a question.
So do you
Yes.
usually see the Director of Technical Services under the CAFO or under the mayor?
CAFO.
Okay, that makes sense to me.
And it's uniform systems, and it's working through all the systems that need to collaborate to run the city.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
So then would we amend to remove "and mayor" underneath B?
I'll make a motion that we amend to change the reports from CAFO/mayor to CAFO,
In consultation with the mayor.
in consultation with the mayor.
Yes.
Okay, I'm just writing that
I
down.
didn't hear a second, but.
I'll second that. Okay, so underneath B, we'll say the director is the technical service director, shall report to and be under the direction of the chief administrative and financial officer in consultation with the mayor. Any further discussion? Okay, on the motion, Councilor Rivera,
Yes.
Councilor Talheimer,
Yes.
Councilor Panich,
Yes.
Councilor Bacon,
Yes,
Councilor McGrath Smith, yes. All right, we have to move to residency, and hopefully this is our last piece before we move forward because it is late. So section 267, it's right at the end of the document, says residence requirement for department heads. It says replacing the stricken sections with the following. Except as otherwise provided in this section, no person shall serve as a department head of the city unless such person is and remains a resident of the city for the duration of their employment. Preference shall be given to candidates who are residents of the city. B, notwithstanding subsection A, department heads need not be a resident of the city or the Commonwealth at the time of appointment, provided, however, that they shall become a resident of the city no later than the end of the first contract term to the extent required by law. C, in the event that at the time of appointment a department head is not a resident of the city, such person shall become a resident of the city within 1 year of the date of appointment unless otherwise provided herein. D, in the event that a department head fails to become a resident of the city within 2 years of appointment, the city council may, by a majority vote, grant an extension of time to satisfy the residency requirement. E, any department head employed as of the date of passage of this section shall be exempt from this section for so long as such person remains continuously employed by the city. In the event that a grandfathered employee has a break in service due to a layoff and is subsequently rehired by the city, such person shall remain exempt from this section upon return to employment. So this creates a streamlined ordinance that applies to all department heads, where there's a clear expectation of residency, but says that they don't have to move to the city until the end of their first contract term, and that if they have not become a resident within 2 years, the city council by majority vote may grant an extension of time. We know that we've had this long-standing conversation around how deeply we want municipal workers to care deeply for the city. And many of us believe that there is real value in people living in the city and knowing it well and also working here, but also wanting to be able to hire the right people from the right pool of experience. And I think this is a real compromise path because the council could decide to grant an extension and could not. I think that it potentially is more political than I would like, because you could then choose to not give residency as a way of pushing someone out the door. Or you could give some people the ability to keep extending, and other people you could try to hold the line.
That's been happening for years.
And that's been happening for years. Yes, Councilor Bacon. Versus just saying, we're not going to have a residency requirement. So I'm just, because we value more, we have to get the right people in the right positions. And so this is a compromise streamlining, and I'm opening up the floor to, maybe we love this and we want to keep it. Maybe we want to say no hardline residency, or you've got to go. Or we say there's no residency requirement and we want to drop it. So opening it up. Councilor Bacon and then Councilor Thalheimer.
Thank you. So one suggestion I would make is to eliminate B, because by having section C, you've basically already said if you don't get here in the first year, you got another year. So if I'm somebody reading that, I say, okay, I have 2 years. So if that is what we mean, we should just say it, right? Because it'll just become, it'll just happen.
Yep.
Right? You can see that happening. Having said that, I don't know the better way because I haven't put my mind to trying to come up with different language, but it seems problematic to me to make a rule, and then when people break the rule, then you take a vote to let them keep breaking the rule. To me, it's better to set it up a different way, because I think the general expectation will be, well, hey, if I'm doing a good job, they're not going to make me move anyway, because how are they going to get somebody else? So it almost seems like we're making a rule that we don't even really mean. I mean, if we mean it, we should just say it. that you, but on the other hand, if we don't mean it, I don't think we should put a lot of words to pretend we do.
Counselor Talheimer and then Counselor
I
Penich.
have mixed feelings about that. I can
I do
argue
too.
both sides.
I do too.
Okay, in very brief, I have real ethical qualms about having a residency requirement while we are in the middle of a housing crisis. We have very limited housing. This is an assumption that somebody is going to be able to make all these things happen quickly, requires a certain amount of money, et cetera, and capacity. Also, a residency requirement in this strict, this 1 year only, et cetera. Again, is this going to limit the number of people we could get for the job? Do we have to have a residency requirement? That's what I'm putting out there. Thank you.
Thank you. Counselor Penich and then Kelly Kern.
Yeah, I'm wondering whether we can keep the language about there being a preference for residents of the city in the interview and hiring process and leave out all of the rest of it for the reasons that Councilor Thalheimer has just identified. And because, yes, every municipality that we know of is searching desperately for qualified people. We need the best people for this. And to limit people who will commit in advance to trying to move here, even after 2 years, I'm afraid will really limit our initial interview pool. And ideally, if we find the right person and they begin working here and they fall in love with the city, then maybe we will actually get them to move here. But insisting that they do it or they're not part of our discussion at all, I'm just afraid of the consequences. And thank you. On to the next person.
Thank you. Just to pause before we continue to Kelly Curran and also Rivera, just to name which roles we're talking about. So this is for all department heads, so it goes way beyond the finance roles that we're talking about. Yes?
Yeah, no, I get that. But
So, and
Councilor Acon has said.
yes. And also I wonder which financial roles are considered department heads under the new structure. So which of those roles are we actually saying would be, quote, department heads?
All the ones that are being ordained,
Okay.
All of them?
that are being ordained.
So the director of technical service,
Yes,
comptroller,
correct.
CAFO,
Yes,
Internal auditor?
yes,
combined
All of them.
treasurer collector,
Yes.
all of them would be considered department heads.
all of them would be considered department heads, yeah.
And my other question is to legal, how many of those are in the charter? Is that another charter issue?
That's a good question.
Yep, and I know that that's come up before because there's been some chartered positions that become exempt and then don't become exempt.
Right.
And so just briefly, how we got to this language was actually a product of the last time we were all here in front of ordinance. And it was a compromise position. And so essentially we just said, okay, let's put that same compromise language in here. Although I pretty much agree with all the arguments, like,
Okay, Kelly Curran, I'd love to have you weigh in as the HR director.
I have before, but to Councilor Thalheimer's point, it is a barrier. People have not applied for positions because they are not interested in becoming residents because some of them are in the home they raised their family in. The housing market's bad now. There's not enough houses in Holyoke to purchase, all of the above. So it is a barrier. We do get less candidates applying. You know, we saw that with the city engineer. It took forever to find someone, let alone live in Holyoke. And then just to, I forget who mentioned it, but maybe they'll come to Holyoke and fall in love and want to move. But it definitely is a barrier, and I would support removing it for all department heads. And it is a preference, like if somebody lives in Holyoke, I think they should be given preference if they're qualified, have equal qualifications as someone who doesn't, but just having it on a job posting prevents people from applying. And I believe that we currently have some good department heads that do not live in Holyoke, and it doesn't change their loyalty or their work towards the city. So I do believe it should be removed.
Thank you. Councilor Rivera?
It is what it is, I guess. I think for me, it's a travesty if we're at a point where we don't believe in our own constituency that we can provide employment that is more than just minimum wage for them. It sucks to see. I mean, I'll vote for it if it's going to make it easier, remove barriers. But I'll be honest with you, with a community where our average median income is significantly low compared to neighboring communities, there's a problem in your system if you can't keep your money inside. If our tax dollars, our highest positions within the city, are being channeled somewhere else, I mean, it's a significant problem. I would say it doesn't sound like it's sustainable in the long term, but at the end of the day, if it's a barrier and if we need to do it, it is what it is. It's just, to me, it's an unfortunate realization to think that our own people cannot help keep up the positions that we have in this particular circumstance.
I agree on that.
Thank you, Councilor Rivera. And I will say too that, we may think of residency requirements as normal because we, of course, are in a city that has always had them, and we're very close to Springfield, which has strong residency requirements. But it's not normal for most communities. Most communities don't have residency requirements because their population sizes are so small that they know they can't always reasonably expect that they would have all of the technical or professional skills that they need. And in a city the size of Springfield, with 174,000 people, you might be able to find all of the talent that you need from within just your boundaries. But I will say, Holyoke is a small city with all the big city, the good stuff that comes with the big cities and all the bad stuff too. But with only less than 40,000 people now, we're a small city, and I'm concerned that if we don't I would love to give preference to folks who are residents of the city, but I'm worried that we will really prevent ourselves from hiring the financial officers of the city that we need to hire in order to right the ship and move us steadily onward at a very vulnerable point. So I appreciate Councilor Bacon's comment earlier about with just removing C entirely. I think that makes sense. I also think that it says under B that department heads, need not be a resident of the city or the Commonwealth at the time of the appointment, provided, however, that they shall be a resident of the city no later than the end of their first contract term. For most of our financial officers, that's 3 years. I don't know if we need to name, for example, like under D, it says within 2 years. I think we should just we should remove C, and I think we should keep D, but change it to match the language above, that it should say
Within
first
duration.
contract term.
Yeah.
So in the event that a department head fails to become a resident of the city within by the end of the first contract term, the city council may, by a majority vote, grant an extension of time to satisfy the residency requirement.
I think that reads much more.
And it creates clarity.
Smoothly,
You can be
and
hired for your contract term, you can work your contract term and feel like council's not going to say, oh, you have to move here right now, right? You can be hired for a term and know you can complete your term even if you don't satisfy the residency requirement.
Well, and if I may.
Yes, Counselor Bacon.
And you had made the comment earlier that in some of these positions, the turnover is probably at a 3-year mark. So it may sort of become a moot point because all those things would be up for consideration. The money, the reappointment, the et cetera, right? So, so it keeps the residency, but it gives a longer period of time.
Yeah.
And to Kelly's point, gives them time to fall in love with Holyoke.
I did. I know it's very possible.
That's because it's the little sister to Springfield.
Counselor Sullivan.
Yeah, no, I like the compromise that you're working towards. Myself, I would drop the residency requirement altogether, completely. I would just leave the one sentence in that preference would be given to Holyoke residents in a hiring situation, if one comes forward. If you got somebody that's highly qualified, that's in here doing a great job, and they live in Chicopee or South Hadley, you're gonna make them uproot their family and everyone and move 10 miles, 5 miles, maybe a half mile across the river, because they live right in South Hadley Falls. You know, to me, that makes no sense. If it applies to just this package, or are we doing this across the board?
This is all department heads. And so again, I'm open to that conversation, but it feels like a wider conversation to have when it impacts all department heads.
Yeah.
But to the will of the body, if council is like, yep, we should do that. Let's drop everything in this section except preference shall be given to candidates who are residents of the city. We could do that too. And I think honestly, there are a number of us have been getting there as much as we don't want to see it happen.
As relates to just the municipal, to the financial modernization piece.
But it doesn't, it's for the whole city.
Yes, this section
We could
applies
carve
to
it
all
out
department heads.
potentially.
We could carve it out.
Yeah.
You'd say, we could effectively say, preference shall be given to candidates who are resident of the city. I see what you're saying, Mike. So you're saying that we could literally just create a F, this doesn't apply to the following financial officers.
Yeah.
And to basically keep a carve out.
If I may,
Well, I'm just saying, like,
I think I'm hearing him say.
if we didn't want it to be dropped from all folks, we could keep this as is, but then add an F that just says, and this residency requirement doesn't apply to, and then list the following positions. That's another option.
Well,
I see Counselor Talheimer and Counselor Panich's hands up.
All right, I'm inclined to drop the residency requirement altogether for all of the reasons that Counselor Sullivan just said. I would be fine with a compromise if we would just want to cut it out for this, but what I am overwhelmingly hearing is this residency requirement is keeping us from getting qualified candidates in the job. Thank you.
Thank you. Counselor Panich?
I agree with what both Councillor Sullivan and Councillor Dahlheimer have just raised. But I also wanted to speak to Councillor Rivera's point, which I feel deeply. But for what it's worth, I think the reason that we don't necessarily have the qualified people available to apply at Holyoke, ironically, is that the market for these people and their work is overwhelming throughout the region. And I have sat in on group discussions with every community in Western Massachusetts where everyone is complaining about we can't hire for position X. And I think to the extent that we don't have people who we can offer that preference to, it's because they're already employed in South Hadley and Chicopee and Turner's Falls and everywhere in the Commonwealth. It is not because we don't think that our own people are worthy. I wish there were more people who we could grab, but I don't think that by dropping a residency requirement, we are necessarily disrespecting our own people. And, I realize that that's not a, complete comfort in all situations, and we'd like to be able to hire internally. But I think the realities are this is work that we need to hire for. And we just heard Kelly say that it's a problem to require Holyoke residents.
I see Councilor Rivera's hand and then Councilor Bacon.
No, thank you. And then to Councilor Panich, no, I thank you for that. And I hear that point. It just, for me as a parent, right? And I'm thinking of education. I'm thinking Holyoke Public Schools all the way. But if I'm using this same approach logically, then I should also not I shouldn't not consider school choice then, if that's the case, right? Because it should be about what's best at the end of the day. So for me, that's where I struggle with it, and it makes it a little difficult for me. But I totally get where we're getting with regards to this particular position and to this particular situation. And especially, I just took an HR management class in my master's program that we kind of deeply look into this and how controversial it is, not just in Holyoke, but in other communities as well. But I hear you and it makes sense, but it's just, for me, that's just the realization. It's just getting to that realization and saying, hey, so maybe it does make sense to look outwards then, right? But thank you again, Councilor Panich.
Councilor Bacon.
Thank you. So if this is a carve-out, I think it might be manageable. If there is an attempt to do it citywide, I think it's going to be highly problematic. You're going to be tripping into the police chief, the fire chief, and all these other positions. And I think that is a slippery slope to try to make all those different. And you're going to be hitting, I believe, and I'll defer to Attorney Bissonnette, a number of issues in the charter relative to that. And so we're going to have to figure out what we would be hitting by doing it for the finance department. But I think if it's the will of the body, what I was going to suggest was just that under A, eliminate everything except preference shall be given to candidates who are residents of the city, and leave B in. Because then you're not starting out with no person shall. You are starting out with your affirmative, we would prefer you're from Holyoke, and then you're immediately saying, but you don't have to be to get here, and you don't have to do it in a hurry, and you are leaving the extension there. So I think that's as close as you get to the win-win, but the next step, if you wanted to go there, could be to carve out all the jobs in here. But this waters down A, B, C, and D a lot from what it was, and it's, what do I want to say, friendlier, I believe, in the way that it's written. But we have to remember that there are many people who get jobs in Holyoke, and after they get the job, they move out of Holyoke after being given extra consideration because they do live here. So, I mean, I can see both sides of this argument, and my suggestion would be to make it less harsh, but not to throw it out entirely. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Sullivan?
Yeah, I completely agree with Councilor Bacon. Whether we do a carve out or water it down a little bit, either way works for me. And the point about people getting the job and then moving out later, that happens a lot. And I don't want to be the Jack Nicholson here and say you can't handle the truth, but the truth is we've had other department heads, all they do is circumvent the whole system and set up a phony address here in Holyoke and get on for years with a phony address. They're not living in Holyoke. We all know they're not living in Holyoke, and it's gone on and on and on.
Oh, the getting the apartment.
So let's get real about this whole thing and take some action, all right?
So my question then is, I feel like we've heard that we're potentially open to removing the residency requirement. I've also heard, maybe we're not comfortable moving to a dropping it for all department heads, but only for financial officers. Where do we stand? Councilor Penich?
Yeah, I think that where we stand is everyone seems to be agreed that as painful as this may be on some level, we should drop it for the financial positions. If we have hesitations about dropping it for everything, then the obvious compromise is to drop it for the financial positions. Just amend A so that all is left is the preference in the hiring process. Drop the rest of it and go to a B, saying this shall not apply to whoever we feel it shouldn't apply to. So we're only dropping the residency requirement for the financial positions listed here. We can revisit this as a city if this is successful and if we decide that we should.
Thank you. Councillor Bacon?
If we're going to do that, you have to keep A and add an F that exempts them. Or you need to create a new section that says residency requirements for department heads of financial departments. You could do it either way, but if you're not changing it for all the department heads, you have to keep A.
You have to keep A, I agree. You
Yeah,
just don't
okay.
have to keep B, C, D. We could go directly to a new B that, listed what we need for our theoretical F. And I think that would be short and simple. And yeah, we would have to do the charter changes, but I think the charter changes would be manageable.
It would be fewer, a lot fewer, I think.
Yes.
Solicitor Bissonnette, can you name kind of the question that Vivian had earlier about what the charter says about residency requirements?
There are really two consecutive parts of the charters, section 45 and 46. 45 calls those positions created in or under the charter officers of the city. Those include department heads. So under that particular provision, you have to be a resident for 2 years prior to becoming an officer of the city. That is rarely raised and usually only comes up if someone wants to challenge maybe a candidate for office. The next provision, 46, is the removal, and that allows for removal for two causes, one of which is no longer residing in the city. So those are two that I would look at initially, either if the residency requirement is eliminated totally, or on the other hand, if it's sort of reduced somehow by adding the financial officer positions to those of the solicitor, the superintendent of schools, and I believe we added the director of DPW last time. So outside of the financial officers, there may not be a ton of folks left. This might be a good time to indicate whether we want to split them up or make it one rule. But those are my thoughts on it.
If we said, if we made the changes we talked about earlier, dropping C and changing D to by the end of the first contract term, and then added an F that said this section shall not apply to financial officers of the city, would that include only those folks that we named earlier, or could that also potentially include other people across the city and other departments?
This is an ordinance that applies to all. It's included here really for discussion, but it stands alone. You can exempt the financial officers covered under this act, though, certainly, from the residency requirement. That would then require a charter change listing those.
So it could be F, this section shall not apply to financial officers named in,
If I could just.
we'd have to change the
Yeah,
language.
If I could just
Yeah.
offer something up, and through the chair, if it's all right.
Yes.
To Bissonnette. This does not apply to collective bargaining agreements. A lot of your department heads exist under collective bargaining agreements, so we're thinking about who does this actually apply to? There's all the financial officers that we've been talking about, right? There's the human resources director, that's a Schedule A. Really, we could just take a look at Schedule A and anybody listed there as a department head on the Schedule A, that's who we're talking about. And the number is pretty small, especially when you think that the solicitor, DPW director, have both been exempt, I believe, from that already. So I know we're talking in hypotheticals here, but just quickly looking at Schedule A, the director of the library, I guess, and the director of planning and economic development are the only other ones that this would impact right now.
Engineer, right?
The city engineer is PSA. Are they still PSA, or are they?
I thought he had to live in the city, though, no? I don't know.
Yeah, so I think the pool of department heads that we're talking about is extremely small once you carve out the financial officers. Just if that helps at all.
It does, although I think in order to even potentially make an amendment on it, I think we would need to have a clarity on what the language should be.
Yeah. I'll make a motion that we ask legal to give us back some language to consider for amending the residency. I'm ambivalent on it, but I'd like to look at some language.
Solicitor Bissonnette? Could you suggest language that we would add that would make clear that what we're doing is carving out the financial officers?
I think we'd have to name them like we do in the charter.
So this section shall not apply to, and then just name the jobs?
I think that's the cleanest way.
Okay.
But there are also going to be, I mean, this is the chicken and the egg question, isn't it? They're also going to have to be named individually in the charter, just like we named the solicitor, superintendent, or works as being exempt under Section 40. So,
Well then,
unless there's a change that deletes the residency requirements from the charter, would then put it in the hands of the council to decide under ordinance what they would want to do about residency. You could eliminate it or make it apply to whoever you wanted to.
I think, if I may,
Councilor Bacon?
I think we really need a separate order to do that. This is contemplated under a finance reorg. If we're gonna change a charter for every position in the city, I think it has to be a separate item.
If I could
Yes.
offer a suggestion, the existing ordinance 2-67 has sections A, B, and C, which is essentially
What's here?
It's there plus that waiver position, that waiver language that we had agreed to for the CAFO originally got inserted in. But to move this forward, if you kept A, B, and C the way it is now, understanding that it probably is worthy of a different conversation on a different date, but to move the finance package forward, you just came up with a D that said all financial officers of the city are exempt. So it would read, no person shall serve as a department head of the city unless such person is and remains a resident of the city for the duration of their employment. This subsection shall be inapplicable to the personnel administrator, the city solicitor, the director of public works, insofar as these positions are exempt from the residency requirement. That's the current law. In the event that at any time of appointment a department head is not a resident, he or she shall become a resident of the city within 1 year of the date of appointment.
That's
Again,
charter.
this is the way it's currently written in the ordinance.
That's why it was that way.
Yeah, exactly. And then C is any department head employed as of the date of passage of this section shall be exempt from this section for as long as they remain employed by the city in the event that a grandfathered employee has a break in service due to a layoff and is rehired by the department, he or she shall remain exempt from this section upon his or her return to employment. Might just.
That's in here.
Yeah, yes, exactly. It is in there. So I just read to you the way the ordinance is now. You could put in D
Right,
and
right.
just say,
Well, the other
But my
option is
concern
just,
is, what is the charter? We can amend any ordinance. My concern is the charter.
yeah. And I think that's what.
And Attorney Bissonette said, just name the
Yes.
positions that you wish to make exempt, because I think the discussion about all
Yes.
departments head is outside of this.
I'm
That's
agreeing.
all I'm saying.
And I'm in complete agreement with you on that. And that's why I was just saying you could name them.
Yeah.
It's already here, because hopefully if this were to pass, the financial package were to pass, then we could actually start posting and trying to hire for these positions, and residency is a question that's going to come up.
Right.
So if we were able to dispose of that now, to move this forward, then you could have, and I'm curious what Counselor Bissonette might, or Solicitor Bissonette might.
I think he said to name them.
Yeah,
I'm working on typing it in now, so I can send it to Jeff.
I believe his advice was, if the committee wanted to recommend it, was to name them as exempt, as we did for the other three. I can't believe we can't hire certain of these people, though, from the city. I mean, a comptroller, really?
But maybe some of them we
We
will.
should be able to hire somebody from the city.
Okay, so the positions are the treasurer collector, director of technical service, comptroller, CAFO, which are the others? Auditor. Is that it?
Well, the full org chart includes the purchasing director and
But-
assessor as well, as a department head.
So then are we comfortable as a
But
group?
We're not adding, hang on a second. I
Mhm.
just want to see what's in the ordinance.
So I was looking at the original ordinance, which
Who's
is,
in the ordinance now that we're looking at?
Yes.
That's what we're talking
the
about.
original ordinance right now exempts the personnel administrator, city solicitor, and the director of public works.
Right,
So those ones are already named.
right. And in the packet that we're looking at right now.
We would be
have
adding
CAFO,
the treasurer collector, the director of technical service, the comptroller, the CAFO, the auditor, the purchasing director, and the chief assessor. As exempt from the residency requirement.
But I thought we already did a separate thing for the purchasing.
You did a waiver. You did.
We did.
You voted on a waiver.
Right.
Essentially, actually
That's-
taking this
that's
language that was
basically
originally
what
in
we
front of
did.
you this evening,
Yeah.
the original language that was in front of you, that's, again, why we were just thinking it would make the most sense to continue with that, since it was a good product, and it's already been used once before.
Okay, so I sent that to Jeffrey.
I wish this wasn't so big.
Yeah.
It's too big.
Jeffrey, are you able to add it onto the screen? And it effectively keeps the existing ordinance as it is, the original, and just adds in those roles as exempt.
Rather than changing all the language.
Do you want this language copied into a section, or do you want me to just change what I'm sharing?
Yeah, why don't you just change what you're sharing? So this is the original language that we have right now in ordinance. And the only change that is here is just naming the financial roles into A, alongside the other three that were already named.
One technical thing, it's HR director now.
That's correct. Yeah, again, it's almost like Municode should change when we change things. Yeah. Okay. Committee, your thoughts on doing that? So rather than changing the language at all, effectively keeping it as it is in ordinance, but just listing the positions
So I just.
as
have-
being exempt.
Do we have to do them all? I mean, do
No.
we perceive all of them as being unavailable in our own community, that we would need to do this because it would create that hardship?
I think what we just heard from our HR director is like,
Well,
yes,
certain
you know,
ones,
first,
But I
Yeah.
want to question it further. All of them? I mean, a controller is basic, there's a
Mm-hmm.
lot of people that have those credentials, I'm thinking, in the city. And some things are rarer and harder to find than others.
Yeah.
And so it seems like if we're carving things out because we don't want to limit our ability to find qualified people, that's a good thing, but do we need to do it as a blanket thing for everybody? I mean, I just think it's a fair question.
I have Counselor Penich and Counselor Talheimer.
I still might consider adding the line about preference being available for Holyoke residents to subsection A. But otherwise, I think this works. I think there is no reason to get overwhelmingly granular about which positions are covered by this and which positions under the Financial Act are not. I think it is time to adopt this if we can and move forward with it. We could spend an hour going over each position in detail. And I just, I think we have very limited time as a council when we're allowed to discuss these things because of the open meeting laws. And we should be using it as efficiently as possible.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Counselor Talheimer?
I'm going to second that. What Counselor Panich just said, like, if this is the compromise, let's get to it. Thank
Okay.
you.
It sounds to me, though, that I heard Penich recommend that we add back in preference shall be given to candidates who are residents of the city at the end of A.
I didn't know we took it out.
It's because I went back to the original language.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I don't think that hurts anything. And I think we were all comfortable with it.
It was an unintentional deletion.
Okay, so on the, I have Israel Rivera. Counselor Rivera, do you wish to speak? Okay, hearing none.
I'll make a motion that we add the.
Madam Chair, I just had to
preference
promote him.
For
Sorry.
residency in Holyoke.
I don't actually see him, Jeffrey. I don't see him on this. Oh, there he is.
Yeah, I'm here. I wasn't a panelist. I was an attendee.
Oh, no.
I was unable to chime in. So, I'm actually, believe it or not, in favor of Councilor Vagan's, granular piece. I'm sorry to say it that way, but it is what it is again. Yeah, I'm not as progressive on this particular topic as everyone else is, unfortunately. But just wanted to chime in and say that. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I would like to move us to a vote.
Do you need a motion to put the residency back in? I mean.
We
the
named it, but
preference.
yes, I think we should actually officially motion.
So I'll
for it.
make a motion that we put the
Preference shall be
preference
given.
for candidates living in Holyoke, whatever that original language was.
Yep. Okay, so we'll add back in preference shall be given to candidates who are residents of the city at the end of section A in the revised version that Jeffrey is projecting over there. Just on that motion, all in favor of adding that?
Aye.
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 Wait,
Any-
Attorney Bissonnette's hand is up. This
Yeah,
may be a-
okay. Solicitor Bissonnette?
I suggest in B and C changing the phrase he or she to that.
Thank you. Okay, so an amendment to change here or she,
'Cause it's more
where it
position.
appears, to they, and to add in the language, preference shall be given to candidates who are resident of the city under A as the last line. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And then on the motion itself, to accept this change to the package under section 267, residence requirements for department heads. Any further discussion? Okay, roll call vote. Councilor Rivera?
This is on the amendment.
This is on amending this section of the ordinance package for residency requirements for department heads.
No.
Councilor Bacon?
I'm going to say no.
Councilor McGrath Smith? Yes. Councilor Tallheimer?
Yes.
Councilor Panich?
Yes.
Are there any further changes that need to be made? Any other concerns before we vote on the package at large?
I just want to say that.
Yes, Councilor Bacon?
I've spent a lot of time on studying this, but I don't feel in the last 2 weeks I've been able to go through all these things that were given to us 2 weeks ago to the degree that I usually do. Now, people want to call that stalling and delay. I call it doing my homework. But the will of the committee will be the will of the committee. I found the things I brought up. I don't feel like I've done a thorough review of this language, and it was given to us at the first meeting where we didn't look at it at all. And this is only one meeting to look at, as I call it, the big ugly bill, but that's my nickname. I do think we should take all the changes we made, we should get the changes back to us, take a final look to come back to committee with any final changes that people might have that they find, and then vote it out of committee. I think I just think it warrants 2 meetings in the new term when we have 2 brand-new committee members. I mean, maybe they studied this thing over the last year. I don't know.
I studied. I'm ready to go.
Thank you, Councilor Tallheimer. All right, on the motion, and I will make the motion that we approve the language as amended by the committee tonight and move this forward to council with our approval.
Could I offer an amendment that we send it to legal and get the legal language back to committee so that we can read it before we send it to council? It's a big document.
Do I have a second?
Wow.
Hearing none. On the motion, for us to move forward as amended to council for their approval. Ezra Rivera, I see your hand.
Yeah, I just wanted to state, just like I support moving forward and all the other stuff with this particular Financial Modernization Act. We've been working on this over the last year and some change. As ordinance chair, I remember bringing it up on multiple different occasions. It was sliced and diced multiple times to make sure that we were able to find a compromise, and then when it came to the compromise, it wasn't compromised enough. Although I don't fully agree with everything that's in the packet, I fully understand what's coming, or at the situation that the city's in. And for me, it's important that we're able to move forward in a way where we have at least some plans outlining what it's going to look like in the future, trying to improve or at least work on getting a hold of our fiscal situation in the city of Holyoke. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. All right.
Can I just note as a matter of
Yes, Counselor Bacon?
I would just note, as a matter of process, we have almost always looked at the final legal form in committee before sending it to the council, particularly when it is a long, complicated ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you.
Will of the body.
On the motion, roll call vote. Counselor Rivera?
Yes.
Counselor Bacon?
No.
Counselor Penich?
Yes.
Counselor Tallheimer?
Yes.
Counselor McGrath Smith, yes. Thank you, committee. We do have 2 items really quickly. I just want to have us take up item 5 so we can give it leave to withdraw. If I could have a motion.
Do you need a motion to take it up in the first place?
Yep.
It's so moved.
Yes. Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, McGrath Smith, order that a procedure for tracking updates in Municode be created for ordinances similar to the grant reporting procedure established by Councillor Bartley. When this came up in Charter and Rules, we quickly realized that it made a lot more sense to do this as a standing rule change than for it to be something that happens in ordinance. And so for that reason, it makes sense to give it leave to withdraw. So I will make that motion to give it leave to withdraw.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And we'll keep item 6 tabled, and we will take it up at our next ordinance meeting. Thank you, everybody. Long meeting. Rest up, everyone, and stay safe if you're driving home.
Thanks, everyone.
We have a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Night, everyone.